Good for you.
Hi, Ashton.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah.
You got homework?
Not very much.
Okay, good.
I can stay later.
Stick around a little bit. The white pen? Oh, okay. To get officers back on the street. So, with that, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thanks everyone for coming out on a rainy night, and may we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Turner, would you
Sure.
lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember. May we have the roll call?
Here.
Here.
Vice Mayor Walter,
Here.
Councilmember Cruz,
Here.
Mayor Bagby,
Present. Don't believe we have a closed session. I know that's reported out as the next item, so we're going to move on to conflict of interest declarations.
I will be recusing myself from talk about the funding for the Cherry Creek.
For Cherry Creek, okay.
I am recusing myself on item 16.
Great, thank you so
And I
much.
believe I need to recuse from item 3. I was not here to approve those minutes.
That actually is a common misconception.
Oh, okay.
I've
You
reviewed
can.
the minutes, and you are actually allowed to vote on it, but it is certainly up to you.
Oh, fantastic. I'm happy. Yep, no problem.
We learned that at the League of Cities new members. And,
Oh, sweet.
Hopefully we'll get a chance to go again later in January. So with that finished, on agenda review, any changes or deletions?
Mayor, just again, for the record, reflect that Councilmember Cruz is going to recuse herself regarding agenda item number 16. Councilmember Brigham is going to recuse herself on item number 17, and there are no other changes to the agenda.
Your promise that there are no other agenda items, I'm going to try to hold you to that. I wish I could. But with that, we will move on to public comments. Any person wishing to speak to the City Council on any item not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Members of the public have the right to speak on any items on the council agenda during that item. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. Each person wishing to speak must go to the podium when advised by the mayor, that's now, and speak directly into the microphone. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes unless additional time is authorized by the mayor. And would you please say your name and where you live, and make sure, do I need to be louder? Sorry about that. And make sure, are we on, Dennis? Okay, all right. I'll project. And do make sure that you sign in with the clerk, with Sue right there. Great, thank you.
Got it. Helen Broughton, Cloverdale. I saw a notification there was an ordinance in the works, and that is not on the agenda, right? I'm allowed to talk about polystyrene and styrofoam?
Absolutely.
It's not on today's agenda.
Oh, yeah, you can talk about it, but we can't, so
Perfect.
go right ahead.
All right, this will be a monologue. So I just wanted to, I saw it, and I know a city approved it recently, and I appreciate the council is trying to improve our city. I do, and I really appreciate it when the council works on really big, important things like safety and security and development. Polystyrene. So it's not that I love it, but I think of things in 3 buckets. How does it affect the environment? That's obviously what this ordinance will be. How does it affect the social equity or the people? And how does it affect the economics? And for my life right now, there may be unintended consequences if you ban it, so I thought I'd share 2 anecdotes. I like to get breakfast on one end of town with my family. I like to eat it at home. It's more comfortable for me, it's more comfortable for the kids, it's more comfortable for the patrons in the restaurant. Our takeout food happens to be in these containers. If they're banned, it will make it hard for the restaurant to offer that the same way. I ride my bike with my family regularly to Friday Night Live. I love that, riding my bike. It's good for the environment. It's good for us. We get some exercise. Fruity Moto, smoothie truck. I bought a smoothie. I loved it, but the little wimpy paper straw that they gave me did not hold up to that smoothie. So a couple weeks went by and I didn't order it. And I thought, okay, this is silly. Why am I not ordering this because of the stupid straw? I will bring my own straw. So I brought my own long plastic reusable straw, enjoyed the smoothie, and then promptly threw it away when I was juggling the kids and their reusable cups. So I didn't buy smoothies for the rest of Friday Night Live, and I don't want people to feel ashamed, right? People want to do the right thing, and that's what creates the warm fuzzies, like, hey, I'm doing something good for the environment. And if we make them do it, you know, it's taking away choices. So I just want you to consider all the aspects when you're considering the ordinance, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you. All right. Would anyone else like to come forward and discuss a matter that is not on this evening's agenda? Okay, well, seeing none then, thank you so much for coming out on a rainy night and participating. We're going to move on to proclamations and presentations, and a commendation to Cloverdale police officers Camara and Gastineau.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. This time I'd like to have Officers John Camara and Bo Gastineau come down to the podium. Take just a moment to read a very quick, brief synopsis of the incident that brought these officers here tonight. In the early morning hours of October 30th, 2019, Officers John Camara and Bo Gastineau responded to a residential structure fire in the 400 block of Butler Court. Officers Camara and Gastineau contacted the occupants of the residence and evacuated them from the house. While speaking to one of the occupants, it was determined an infant was still inside in a playpen in one of the bedrooms. By this time, the fire was concentrated on the outer wall of the bedroom where the child was, and visibility in the bedroom was limited due to smoke. Without hesitation, Officers Camara and Gastineau entered the residence, checked all the bedrooms, and found the infant still in the playpen. They secured the child and exited the residence. The child was checked by medical staff at the scene and determined to be okay. Had it not been for the quick response and life-saving efforts, the outcome of this incident could have been drastically different. This commendation recognizes Officers Camara and Gastineau for their efforts in quickly assessing and reacting to saving a life at the risk of their own lives. These officers represented the police department and the city of Cloverdale with the highest degree of merit and professionalism. I just want to add that this incident also took place while we were dealing with the Kincaid fire, public safety power shutoff, as well as a gas shutoff, making this increasingly more dangerous. So they certainly earned this commendation tonight, and I'm honored to present them with it. John? Thank you. Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate you guys coming. Yep. Thank you.
Would any members of the council or staff like to make a comment? Councilmember Turner. Is this working, Dennis? I didn't think so.
I won't say anything.
Hold on. Did you turn it on, Dennis? Hold on. Is it working now? No, okay.
I won't say anything tonight.
That's not true. We'll share. We'll pass it back and forth. So sorry. Councilmember Turner.
So yes, I do absolutely want to say something. This gave me shivers. I have a 6-week-old baby girl at home that I brought home from the hospital 6 days before I read about what had gone on in that particular residential fire. And I cannot thank our police department, and particularly Officers Camara and Gastineau, for being heroes. Sometimes it's just another shift, another hour on that shift, and you change someone's life completely. So Thank you. Thank you immensely for protecting our community.
I can't say it any better than that.
I share.
I just, I'll keep this brief now that my mic is working. I just want to give a shout out to YouTube and our videographer, because just because they left doesn't mean that we're not going to ever be able to let them live this down. This is a grateful community, and I am glad that we're recording this. Because they probably couldn't stand to be in the room anymore, because that's what those guys are like. Plus, are they both on duty tonight, Chief?
Yeah.
There you go. So, so somebody please be sure to share this clip on their Facebook profile so that they can be embarrassed over and over and over again, because all of us should be so lucky to be so embarrassed. These two guys, during the power outage, were on duty, and their kids were at home. So not only are they out there patrolling, keeping us safe during the de-energization, they just performed above and beyond the call of duty, and that's what the Cloverdale Police Department is like, and these two guys in particular. So we're very, very lucky to have them, and just want to thank you for making sure that they are recognized for this. So thank you, Chief.
Absolutely. Well deserved.
Anybody, any staff, speak up? Or we pretty much beat you to everything. So I guess we'll move on to the next item, but we're grateful, and that family is grateful, and we thank you for your service, all of our officers.
Thank you.
Right. So we're going to move on to, next is the student liaison report. So you have to follow that, I'm sorry, but go right ahead.
Yeah, I know, I can't live up to it. The three things I have to report, finals are coming up, obviously, so the students are pretty busy. The Macmillan tournament is soon, for any of you who know what that is, and the seniors are trying to raise money for senior trips, so one of the things they're doing is one of them is dressing up as Santa. So if any adults in the community want to have their kids take pictures with a high school Santa, you're welcome to do that.
So how do we find out about that?
I think you can contact the school administration. They did it today. I don't know when the follow-up date or when the next time they're doing it is.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on to the consent calendar. All items under consent calendar will be considered together by one action of the council unless any council member or member of the public requests that an item be removed and considered separately. Would any member of the council like to see an item removed or discussed?
No.
All right, would any member of the public like us to pull the item and discuss it separately? All right, seeing none. Would someone like to make a motion? Or-
Mayor, if I could, just a real quick comment about item number 6 on the consent agenda. The item is an agreement with a wireless service company to purchase and install high-low emergency alert sirens in our police vehicles. This item, it was within the authority of the city manager to authorize, but we wanted to bring it forward so that the community was aware that we are committing resources to implementing this system to help notify our residents during emergency events. We see this as a very important tool to help provide alerts to our residents for emergencies. And so I just want to make that comment that what you're approving tonight is something we could otherwise improve internally, but want to give the council recognition that we're supporting this, that you're supporting this, and we're bringing it forward, and we'll be implementing quickly. There will be additional outreach through both the website and through the police department to make the community aware, or ensure the community is aware of this new system that we'll be using for alerts. And it's a tool that has been implemented recently by both Sonoma County Sheriff's Office as well as Santa Rosa. And I can tell you, as someone who was subject to an evacuation recently and heard the high-low alarms, high-low sirens, I knew immediately what it meant, and it was very effective. And I think this implementation of this in Cloverdale will enable us to be prepared for future emergency events should we need to evacuate. So.
Thank you. Someone like to recommend the item?
I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Sue, your roll call?
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Walter? Mayor Begbie?
Aye.
Councilmember Brigham
Aye.
and Councilmember Turner.
Aye.
Thank you. And under communications, I'm seeing none. Anything new? All right, and we will move on to public hearings. Public hearing items will begin at the time shown or close thereafter as possible to allow for completion of the item. We have item 9, adoption of 2019 California Building Standard Codes and the 2019 Fire Code by reference and amending Title 15, Building and Construction of the Cloverdale Municipal Code.
Mayor, council members, this item is the public hearing portion of the adoption of the 2019 California Building Code Standards. Our building inspector, Mark Harris, is here again, as he was on November 11th, so if we have any technical questions, we'll call him up here. At the November 11th, we did kind of discuss what some of the big changes were, including the Appendix Q, which will allow provisions for tiny houses, so that's exciting. Also, not included in this is the all-electric reach code. As we discussed on November 11th, we're continuing to do our outreach. We're planning to do another workshop with the building community and bring something back to council early next year, recommendation on that regard. Also not mentioned in November was we are adopting the Cal Green Tier 1 and the energy code, which every code adoption, the energy section gets more stringent, more efficient, so we're working towards less energy use in new homes. So our recommendation tonight is that you hold the public hearing, adopt the second reading by title only, and waiving the reading of the text for the ordinance adopting the 2019 California Building Code Standards.
Thank you. So right now, I'll just ask the council if they have any technical questions they want to ask Mark or staff, and then after that, I'll open it up for public comment, and then we'll bring it back for deliberation. So I'll start on my left. Were there any questions for staff or Mark? Or,
No.
No? Okay. Oh, and I've got to share the mic with you. So there you go.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Kevin, you and I spoke about the portion eliminating or doing the alternative for gas or electric. And you mentioned that you were going to do another workshop for the contractors and the construction trade. I'd like to see us open that up to the public as well and make sure that there's a notice somewhere in the Reveille so that they can come and give their input on how they feel about it as well.
Okay, we'll certainly do our best to publicize it and determine the appropriate location. If there's going to be a lot of people, we may have to do it at the firehouse or senior center, but yeah, it's a good idea.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
You've got a working mic, so go right ahead.
Okay. Regarding how we are going to announce events that are open to the whole town, we need to have some discussion of what methods we're going to use, because not everybody gets the paper, not everybody has internet, and not everybody goes by City Hall to look at the bulletin board. So it had been brought to my attention in the past when we did the emergency preparedness workshops to perhaps use the water bill as a way to promote events that have to do with all of Cloverdale's population. So that is just a suggestion, and if it's something that could be coordinated in advance, or if you have other suggestions or other members of the public have other suggestions on how to promote events that impact everybody.
Thank you. I think the lead time on the water bills is pretty long. Do you know, David? Or
It's about 45 days, approximately.
but it's a good tool for sure. We need to have a little bit more lead time. But we'll take a look at it. We'll do the social media and our usual channels and try to step it up.
Great, thank you. Okay, so at this time, I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Whoever would like to make a comment on this item, please come down to the front and give your name and address. All right. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. So I'll start to my right this time. And are there any questions or comments about them? Yeah, okay. Anything?
No, I'm glad to see the tiny house stuff going and some good.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these just, there was also some very good looking cleanup as well. So
Yeah.
I think it's fairly sound. So if someone would like to recommend the item, don't be shy.
I can. City of Cloverdale, an ordinance of the City of Cloverdale repealing and replacing Cloverdale Municipal Code Chapters 15 through 15.18 and adopting by reference the 2019 California Building Standards Code, Title 24, which includes the 2019 California Administrative Code, Part 1, including tables, the 2019 California Building Code, Part 2, including tables, and appendices C, I, J, L, and O, based on the 2018 International Building Code, the 2019 California Residential Building Code Part 2.5, including tables and appendices H, Q, S, V, and X, based on the 2018 International Residential Code. I can see why no one else wanted to read this. The 2019 California Electrical Code, Part 3, including tables and appendices A, B, C, F, and G, based on the 2017 National Electric Code. The 2019 California Mechanical Code, Part 4, including tables and appendices B and C, based on the 2018 Uniform Mechanical Code. The 2019 California Plumbing Code, Part 5, including tables and appendices A, B, D, and I, based on the 2018 Uniform Plumbing Code, the 2019 California Energy Code, Part 6, including tables and Appendix 1A, the 2019 California Historical Building Code, Part 8, including tables and Appendix A, the 2019 California Fire Code, Part 9, with appendices standards and NFPA standards by reference based on the 2018 International Fire Code, the 2019 California Existing Building Code, Part 10, including tables and Appendix A, Chapters 1A, A1, A3, and A5, based on the 2018 International Existing Building Code and the 2019 California Green Building Standards Code, Part 11, including tables and appendices A4 and A5, and the 2019 California Reference Standards Code, Part 12 of Title 24, including tables and the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
And we'll have our eternal rent.
Councilmember Turner?
Yes.
Councilmember Brigham?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Walter?
Aye.
And Mayor Bay?
Aye. Great, thank you. All right, we'll move on to new business and item 10, appointment of planning commissioners to fill openings and vacancies on the planning commission. Is that Mr. Thompson?
Yes, Mayor, council members, this item is a proposed appointment of 3 new planning commissioners. Just a little bit of background, the mayor and I, after we advertised for the positions, we received 6 applications. We interviewed all 6, and the candidates before you tonight were judged to be the ones that were the top candidates. And I'll just, they did come up the last time and kind of talk about themselves, and I'm sure they'd be willing to do that again if you'd like them to, but I'll just run through who they are. So we have Eric Sanders. He would assume the Commissioner Domke, who resigned his position, and that would go until June 20th, 2020. Sandra Holvitz would be a regular member, and she would be appointed until November 2023. And Erika Torgerson? You got it. You're right. It's not that hard. She's proposed to be an alternate whose term would end in 2021. So our recommendation tonight is by motion, the council will approve the mayor's selection for planning commissioners as described. And again, I think they're willing to come up if you'd like them to. We did that at the last meeting, so it's your call.
Jason, did you have a chance to review the YouTube from the meeting?
I didn't review the YouTube, unfortunately, but I did read the
packet.
resumes.
If we could ask the candidates then to just come up and give a short introduction and a little bit about your backgrounds, and then we can have any questions answered, that would be great. Sandra, if we want to start with you.
Hello, my name is Sandra Huberts, and in 2015, my husband moved over here, and then 3 years later, in August, I moved to Cloverdale, but I was part-time coming back and forth, and then it became full-time. So a little bit about my history. For 20 years, I worked in construction, a family-owned business, and I did everything. Went out to job sites, did the bidding, did the bookwork, HR, everything. So after that, I moved into the public sector, and I worked for a Joint Powers Authority. I'm a little nervous, I don't know why. Anyways, Southwest Transportation Agency, and it's like a sister company to West County. And so what we did over there was we did pupil transportation, and we had a fleet of 100 buses. So at that agency, I was the agency director there, and so we ran everything. And doing that is like, it's like a business. You have so many avenues. You have a gas station. We had gas, diesel, CNG, LNG. And then we had our shop, and we had a 6-dog shop, and we had buses coming in. And the way I like to see the JPA was like a big brother, because we had a lot of our facilities, we did training, we did everything there. And by pulling our resources, the schools were able to do more things and have 2 dispatchers, have 2 routers. So running that agency was like having a little town. We did so much there. And so that's a little bit about my background. I was doing that for about 8 years. And then I moved over here once my contract had ended. And so I'm here now with my husband, very happy to be in Cloverdale. And I love Cloverdale because back in 2015, we were looking at places to live. And we saw this town, he goes, like 30 miles out. And I said, yeah, but it's beautiful. It's like a little Hallmark town. And so here we are, and I love this town, and I'm looking forward to help out. And the way I see myself is being a bridge between the staff and council members. And you need someone to be right in the middle to help out, because I know what it's like to be here and having to do everything, all the stuff that you have to think of. So you need someone to help you to look at things, evaluate things, look at the general plan and see, is this where we want to go? And so anyways, that's a little bit about me. Do you have any questions?
Not at the moment, but thank you. I appreciate your
Are
presentation.
there any other questions from council members at
Nope.
this time? Okay, great.
Thank you.
Eric, can you come up?
Good evening, I'm Eric Sanders from Cloverdale. I am a multi-generational Cloverdale resident. I was raised here, and I have raised my family here. My wife is here in the audience. I have a diverse education. I have degrees in business management, natural science, as well as liberal studies from Sonoma State University. I'm a 10-year United States Navy veteran, Chief Petty Officer. I have close to 8 years experience in public works as an instrumentation technician, water and wastewater treatment operator, as well as operations manager for the Bodega Bay Public Utility District, City of St. Helena, and also the City of Cloverdale. And I have applied for this position because I feel that at this point in my life, I need to give back to the community that raised me and raised my family. And my way of doing that is to try and help guide the city into the future in a very sustainable way. So, do you have any questions for me?
So, any questions from the right for Eric? Marta? Okay, thank you.
Nope.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Don't go far. All right, Erika. That's easy, Eric and Erika.
Good evening. My name is Erika Torgerson. I'm the Director of Customer Service for Sonoma Clean Power. We also are a Joint Powers Authority, so I have experience dealing with a little multi-unit of my own, or my little town of myself. As a director there for the last 5 years, I have immense knowledge of the public process, working with local politicians, and working within my community and under the Brown Act and other public policies such as that. Before that, my real experience for this job was I was in community banking for 9 years. Some of that time I spent in commercial underwriting primarily commercial real estate and small business loans. In addition, I spent some time working through the recession on the foreclosed properties the bank took back. Many of those projects were in-process construction project, land deals, and some really ugly in the works houses. So I worked through entitlement processes, I worked through subdivision maps, I did lot line adjustments, a variety of things in real estate. In addition to that, I grew up in real estate. My dad was a broker for a number of years in Sonoma County, and so real estate has always been my passion, and city planning is something that I really enjoy. I have been in Cloverdale since 2012. I have 2 stepsons here. They've both been through the Cloverdale school system. My wife is a small business owner, so we have lots of understanding of how tough it is to be a small business in Sonoma County and to get things done and to get things permitted. It's tough. And I really want to do this, so I want to see Cloverdale be able to grow sustainably in a way that still makes sense for all residents. I don't want to become the next Healdsburg. I don't want to become a suburb of Santa Rosa. I want Cloverdale to be a community of its own, with people, a place for people to work and live. Thank you.
Any questions?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, then, at this time, I'm going to open it up to the public. Would anyone like to come forward and make a comment? Please state your name for the record.
Shirley Davis. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I was here at the other meeting when we presented these 3 very qualified people, and I'm going to make it short and sweet. Make your decision not political, but smart. Get people who are experts, who have a lot of knowledge that can help in the Planning Commission. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. We're taking comments on Planning Commissioner selection if anyone else wants to come forward. All right. Well, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council for deliberation. And who would like to start us off? I keep talking into a microphone that doesn't work for some reason. So there we go. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, when this item came to us on October the 9th, at that time I voiced my concerns about the lack of Commissioner Cox being reappointed to his 4-year seat. And I'm still going to advocate for that this evening. You know, Mr. Cox brings a lot to the table, both in corporate memory and in his community outreach. He is constantly in touch with the community. He's been a city council member for a number of years and a planning commissioner for a number of years. I'd like your choices. I think Eric would do a fantastic job. I also support Sandra as well. So I would like to see Eric, Sandra, and Bob Cox be appointed. At the last meeting, I mentioned that I did have a problem with Erika based on the fact that we have another commissioner that also works for Sonoma County Clean Power. And I just feel, you know, I'd like folks to make their decisions independently and not on input from coworkers. It's important that there be transparency. I understand what the Brown Act is, but a lot of the public does not. And when they see 2 folks that are on our planning commission that work out of town for the same agency, the perception very well could be that, you know, here we go, everything's going to revolve around the county and the county standards. So, again, I'd like to make a motion for
This time we're still deliberating.
and that's fine. But when the time comes, I would like to make a motion for Eric, Sandra, and Bob Cox.
Sure. I also have the same concern about Bob. So I would like to recommend Bob for the 4-year position, just reappointing him to his position. Eric for the term that expires on June 30th, and Sandra for the November 13th, 2021 alternate.
You know, I find myself constantly reflecting that had I applied to be a planning commissioner with this candidate pool, it wouldn't have happened. One of the things that I do recall, though, that I've seen with the appointments that we've had leading up to this year is that the first few meetings that you're on the planning commission, experience aside, it can be a little daunting. The packets are a little heavy. And I don't really see that engagement until a few meetings are under one's belt. And I mean that with the utmost respect I can. It's part of the learning curve. I think with any job, you could be the director of anything, and when you start a new job, there's a learning curve. I'd like to see us keep some experience on the Planning Commission as we move forward. It helps you ask the right questions, in my opinion. I remember countless times I disagreed with Bob, but I knew because of how he comes to the Planning Commission, I better be prepared to argue with him. And I better have my point of view really well thought out. And the one that really comes to mind was there was a project coming in where he hammered solar, and I remember looking at the diagram, it was all under tree cover. The solar wasn't happening. But the fact that he asked it made it very clear to that developer what Cloverdale is all about with the sustainable energy and the different way that we build things.
You are aware that it's actually in California, they're required to
Oh, absolutely.
eliminate the tree cover
Absolutely.
to
And so
allow solar. So
and so
that's kind of a moot point, but it was good to.
But it was the point that I'm getting at is, while I did not agree with him, I had to do the research to realize that that was the case. And I had to make sure I read that packet completely. We would leave one seasoned planning commissioner left if we move forward with these recommendations. And that's the only aspect of it that concerns me. It's not one person over the other. These are some of the most well-qualified and talented individuals I've laid my eyes on, which makes the decision that much more difficult. But Bob threw his hat in the ring to continue. I'd like to see him be able to on some capacity, and I'm happy to make a compromise having Bob be the alternate to where we might change the roles a little bit of who's voting on the Planning Commission, but I'd like to see him still participate. And I hope I've articulated myself in such a way to where this will not be perceived as political, and that I really did look into this and come to with what my heart told me. Thank you.
Are you prepared to say now which two you would want a seat, or do you want to wait and have staff run us through this? Because Gus and Marianne have both given their rankings.
For Eric and Sandra.
Yeah.
And that would leave Bob to be the alternate, but I know
No,
that
that wasn't
differs
what I
from what
said.
you said, because you wanted Bob to be the regular,
And
so
that
I mean.
that's not what Gus said either.
Okay, so I would be an outlier nonetheless, but I mean, honestly, I could see us move forward with Eric right in the position that we've considered. Sandra, I think, is a great match, and Erika, I really do apologize, but sometimes perceptions are reality, and I'd like to see Bob continue as the alternate.
He's not the alternate now, you know that.
I do understand, yeah, but continue from this conversation, which really doesn't make sense. But,
No.
What I had, and tell me if I misunderstood your instructions, Mr. Vice Mayor. I had you seating Eric, Sandra, and then Bob as alternate, was that correct?
No,
Or how
Bob
did
would
you?
retain his four-year position.
Okay, sorry. Staff, did you get a hold of that? And
I'm noting that. I had it in the order of Eric for the 4-year term, Sandra as the alternate, and Bob as the 2-year. But to clarify, Vice Mayor, it's Bob Cox for the 4-year, and Eric is the alternate.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, Eric is the alternate and Sandra is the 2-year.
No, Sandra is the alternate.
Sandra is the alternate.
Oh,
Yeah, okay, that's what I.
And
That's what I
Eric is
remember.
the 2-year.
Got it.
It's the way I'd like to
That's
see
what-
it.
And so then, Councilmember Brigham, could you clarify your
Yeah.
preferences?
Yeah, I would like Bob to retain his seat, so he will have the 4-year seat that he has now that would end in 2023. Then we would put Eric in the regular, his term would expire on June 30th, 2020, and we would have Sandra as the alternate for November 13th, 2021.
And Councilmember Turner, do you want to go ahead and restate your?
Yes, I would have Eric, term expired June 30, 2020. Sandra, term expired November 13, 2023. And Bob Cox, alternate, term expire November 13th, 2021.
Great, thank you. Councilmember, I keep doing that, here we go. Councilmember Cruz.
Well, I really have to say that perception is something that we have to learn to train, because my husband works for the city of Cloverdale, and the previous mayor said to me, you shouldn't run because your husband works for the city of Cloverdale. And I have run, I did run, and I continue to stand on transparency and clarity. I have no conflict of interest here. Today, I'm recusing myself on item 16, and I have been able to perform independent from my husband. He's an engineer, I'm not. He has a job to do, I have a different job to do. And I believe that I have served the city of Cloverdale very thoroughly and with great balance. So I would disagree that perception, because two people work in the same place, that would be hindering the progress of Cloverdale. So I disagree with Vice Mayor Walter in that respect. I would move to have all your recommendations. If I had to negotiate, I would go ahead and keep, if I had to negotiate regarding Bob Cox, I would have him as an alternate. I would have Sandra on the 4-year, and I would have Eric on the other position. I believe we need diversity in the Planning Commission, and I believe we need different experience to be able to face the changes that Cloverdale is encountering at this moment and in the near future. I believe that we all need to be responsible for our actions, and we don't need anybody else to put us on track. So that's my thought, Madam Mayor.
Great, thank you. I just want to be really clear to the public what the process was. And I'd like to address a couple of misnomers, or I'll just say things I don't agree with. It's not Bob's seat. It's not Mike's seat. It's not Bill's seat. It's not Shirley's seat. It's our seats. It's our planning commission. It's our people who advise us on transportation and housing issues, and who have a quasi-judicial role to play, and play it often. So when I hear council members, long-serving council members say, Bob's seat, I take offense as a voter. And I'm concerned about that. I'm also very concerned about the red herring that we can't have two people who work for 70, how big is Sonoma Clean Power? 70 people at this point? Not quite, and it's growing every day. And that is a red herring, and it's actually just like a form of gaslighting, because it's misinforming the public about what the rules are. On a 5-person council or a 5-person commission, a daisy chain meeting is 3 people or more, not 2 people. So even if Chad and Erika talked about planning commission issues every single day, and as long as they didn't talk about it with another commissioner, they're not violating the Brown Act. Am I right, that council?
That's correct.
Okay, so thank you. So that concerns me. And I'll tell you, in the interest of transparency, I'll just be really frank about what the process was and the information that I received in my capacity as mayor and responsibility for making these recommendations for appointments. We put the request out we always put the request out when the seats are open, because we like to operate with transparency. People have to be reappointed to these seats, and they can be removed because they serve at the pleasure of the council. That's how this works. Again, seats don't belong to you. You occupy them at the pleasure of the council and who are making that appointment in the name of the voters. So Mr. Thompson put the notice out that we were accepting applications for these open seats. And we received how many responses?
6.
6. 2 of whom had applied before. And I just want to, and I want to let everybody know that we interviewed folks, we got their applications in, we brought them in for an interview. Mr. Thompson and I immediately reviewed their application and immediately reviewed the content of the interview, and we ranked them. We ranked each one of them. And I'll tell you right now, because this is not an employment, this is an appointment, so everything is public anyway, it's all in the packet. I re-ranked them, and it was tough, because these are the best applicants that we have ever gotten. I had to rank, sorry Eric, I had to rank Sandra first. But it was tough. You were a close second after the interviews and after the applications. Right on your heels was Erika. Any 3 of you, despite what, I'm sorry, I'm not going to agree with Councilmember Turner, we're going to agree to disagree. Any one of them, because of their public experience, because of their, because they have served as staff, because they have participated in years of public meetings, and because of their construction experience, their engineering experience, and their railroad experience reading plans, can step into this job and be ready to go. I'm just going to read very quickly from Bob Cox's application. Let's see, here are we. Summary of background experience. Cloverdale Planning Commission, Cloverdale City Council. Director, Sonoma Clean Power, Waste Management Agency, Russian River Watershed Association. And he lists his education. It's there in the packet for anybody to read. I'm going to go down to the person who ranked 4th, who was, there were 2 people who I ranked 4th and 5th, who previously applied for the Planning Commission spot. And when I couldn't place them, I said, please come back and apply again. Please come to community meetings. Please stay involved, because you're so talented and you are so good, and you are exactly the person we're saying constantly. We need to get them more involved in the community. We need people who have families, people who have kids in school. We need to get them involved in local government. Okay, so that we can start mentoring them and get them involved. I just want to read the background of the person who ranked 4th. Please state the reason you should be considered for appointment of the City Council. I have been in the construction industry for 19 years. Currently, I am a window and door saleswoman for Golden State Lumber, and I am considered one of the most knowledgeable and reputable people in my field in the Bay Area. Prior to window and door sales, I worked for Reggie Construction as the bookkeeper and project manager. My experience at these capacities have educated me on both public and private works in buildings, California building codes and regulations, as well as understanding how they came to exist and why they are important. Because of my experience in my particular facet of high-end residential construction, I'm often sought out by architects and builders in the conceptual phase of projects to help work out design and building code compliance. Because of this experience, I believe I bring a lot to the table when it comes to future planning. I have been in Cloverdale for 32 years, and my children are 5th-generation residents. I have seen how restricted growth has benefited our community, but also how it has impacted young members of the community, like myself, making it difficult for lifelong residents to afford to buy their first home. And I have watched them leave town in droves to areas that are more affordable and conducive to young families. This is the person who ranked 4th. Jacob, I won't go into a lot of detail, but I'd put him on as an alternate so that he could just learn the process of public meetings. Because again, he's a family guy here in town who wants to serve, who wants to be involved. This is who we say we want to get involved. And yet, And yet, we insist that a seat belongs to somebody who served on the planning commission for several years, somebody who was appointed to the council, won re-election, and then did not win re-election in the last election. He didn't even come in third, he came in fourth. The voters spoke. This community wants to see change. We're placing people on this planning commission that are going to affect the transportation and housing and development in this community long after we're all gone. They're going to be affecting the lives of the children and the grandchildren of the folks in this room. When Bob was serving as a council member, the topic of climate change came up. I wasn't on council at the time. And I'm sorry, I'm giving my background.
This is really annoying.
You know, you've made your point that you do not want Mr. Cox on the planning commission.
I want
his seat.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the community has a right to know. I haven't even started to talk about Bob.
Yeah,
No,
you have.
no, I haven't.
Yes, you have.
What I've done is excuse me.
I thought this wasn't going to be political. You're making it political.
Ma'am, you had your opportunity. This item has been delayed 3 meetings.
Correct.
Well, let's bring it to.
So let's figure it out.
Do we have a motion?
I do have a motion to move on this as recommended by Madam Mayor.
Is there a second? For lack of a second, is there a substitute motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, please, that we retain Planning Commissioner Bob Cox in the seat, and not his seat, and I understand that. Not his seat, and I understand that. To the 4-year term, I'd like to recommend that Eric Sanders be appointed to the 2-year term, and I'd like to recommend that Sandra be appointed as the alternate. And if I could just say, Shirley, you mentioned don't make this political. It is political. This is a political arena. And the appointees will represent the city in a political manner. So that's my motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there a, may we have a vote? And just, actually, can we have the city manager repeat, restate the motion?
I believe the motion as offered by Vice Mayor Walter is to appoint Mr. Bob Cox to the 4-year term, appoint Eric to the remainder of the 4-year term that was vacated, and to appoint Sandra Hulverts for the 2-year alternate position.
Yeah, that's correct.
And I believe there is a second. May we have the vote?
Commissioner Cruz, Councilmember Cruz,
Nay.
Councilmember Brigham,
Aye.
Councilmember Turner,
I have to stand by my selections. I want to see a level of compromise here. I am permitted to rationale my vote. Thank you.
Actually, this is a point of order, so you can make an alternate motion later.
But you have to say yea or nay is what she's saying.
I understand. Forgive me. No, I understand that rationale. Thank you.
And Councilmember Turner, I would never do that to you.
I understand.
Never cut you off. This is a.
Thank you. I do find myself I do find myself having an emotional attachment to this issue. I hope it doesn't condone me for admitting that. I am human. This is a very charged issue. On this particular motion, I'm sorry, I have to vote no.
and Mayor Bailey.
No.
I would like to make an alternate motion.
Vice Mayor Walter.
Oh, forgive me.
Yes.
Goodness. I would like to make a motion that we appoint Eric Sanders as the regular member. Term expires June 30th, 2020. I'd like to appoint Sandra Hobarts, the regular member. Term expires November 13th, 2023. And I'd like to appoint Bob Cox, alternate. Term expires November 13th, 2021.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. May we have the vote, please?
Councilmember Turner,
Yes.
Councilmember Brigham,
Thank you.
No.
Mayor Bagby,
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Walter.
No. Not yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Good, at least we made a decision.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Thank you.
May I ask for a recess, please, Madam Mayor?
Certainly. Would you? And we will take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. Thanks for everyone's patience and indulgence. Yeah. Okay, well, why don't I just engage in sexist and condescending remarks and undercut you and backmouth you in the background? Yeah. charity. Yeah. Maybe we can fund some affordable housing for all the people who would love to give you a lecture. Yeah. I can't. Councilmember Brigham isn't here. I think it's impolite to rush people, but if you insist. Actually, she might be. Regional library. All right.
You know, I'm an expert, and it needs to have football season, so I pick it up halfway through. Chase it.
Never mind. Councilmember Turner, would you mind going to find Councilmember Graham? That would be great, thank you.
It's just creating a new account right now. Creating a-
Dennis, is this working? We're good? Okay,
As
great.
long as Martin knows her
As long as staff is ready, I think we're going to, can we reconvene? Great. All right, we're going to bring it back to new business again. And item 11, a request from Cloverdale Regional Library to extend painting of red curb in front of 401 North Cloverdale Boulevard, removal of an olive tree. Who would like to take this?
I'll take that on.
All right.
Madam Mayor, City Council, so this was brought to us by the library because apparently some of the people who use the library were having difficulties when they exited the library by automobile, looking towards the traffic coming southbound on North Cloverdale Boulevard. Sometimes there's a large vehicle parked there in front of the library, and people have complained about not being able to see the oncoming traffic, so they thought it was hazardous. So what's before you is a recommendation. It was taken to subcommittee, Public Works Subcommittee, and they're recommending that this whole council take a look at this and authorize the Public Works basically to eliminate the 4 parking spots in front of the library, paint it red, so that there will be no vehicles parked there at all, so it'd be safer for vehicles exiting the library to exit and not encounter any traffic. So before you is a recommendation to see if you want to move forward with a simple act of just painting the curb red in front of the library.
Great, thank you. Any questions for staff at this time before I open it up to the public? So, Councilmember Cruz?
Yes, I would like to know if it's possible to save the olive tree and replant it somewhere else.
Unfortunately, the olive tree is gone.
Oh.
It was unable to save because there were other valves in the area and whatnot, so we could not pull it out safely without impacting some of the infrastructure that was underneath it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from our council members?
Mayor
Anything from
and
staff?
council, if I can just add to your city engineer's presentation on this item. Obviously, the city engineer's requesting the council's permission to extend the red paint along the entire frontage to restrict parking to address the request from the library. I wanted to bring this forward on the regular agenda for council's consideration, in part because I think there are some ancillary impacts that the council might want to consider as part of doing that, taking that action. I think staff did really quickly move to address the visual impact or the impact on drivers by removing the existing olive tree. And there is kind of an engineering standard around what's referred to as a vision triangle to ensure that it's clear so that conflicts with oncoming traffic are minimized or reduced. And I think the area that the library is requesting be painted red extends beyond that vision triangle. One item that the council may want to consider, because I think parking is valuable in restricting it significantly in the manner that the library is requesting, probably would result in the reduction. I think we've estimated it between 4 and 5 parking spots, depending on what size the spaces were
Yeah.
kind of allocated.
Yeah, standard spacing is 20 feet, so you lose 4 spaces.
Yeah. So there may be an opportunity here to give the authority to the city engineer to just paint a portion or a larger area red, but preserve the remaining area for parking. So you're addressing the potential safety concern about ingress and egress safely into the driveway of the library, but not necessarily restricting all of the parking in front. So that I just wanted to share that with council. Obviously, it's a fairly low-cost option to just paint it all red, but council could give your city engineer some authority to really just demarcate the kind of division triangle and leave the remaining space open so that it is available for public parking. Subsequent to this request, we did receive a request from the Library Advisory Board to place a structure in the parking area, which may impact at least one parking space within the structure or in the parking lot. So that coupled with the painting all the spots red could result in an additional spot being lost. And I think as we've seen the popularity of the library, the usage of the library increase, and then when there's other downtown events,
Book sale.
that
That's all I'm saying.
may be beneficial to retain that parking. Council may want to consider the request and give that some consideration. Just wanted to offer that up for the council.
Thank you so much. Were there any other questions before we open it up to the public?
Oh, no problem.
Great.
That actually gave me a question. Do we have the ability to make a motion when the time is appropriate, of course, to say up to the, I believe, 80 feet that's being requested? That gives our city engineer some discretion to work with the library, possibly do the visual triangle first, and should the library board compel the city manager or the city public works director to move it forward, it wouldn't necessarily have to come back to council.
I think that's within the council's purview in terms of how you'd like to provide that direction.
Go, Councilmember Cruz.
Yeah, I have the same question. If we keep it to the triangle, how many spots do we lose?
I haven't done the calculation, but it'd be less than 4.
Even with the triangle, just keeping that and not doing the whole thing?
Yeah, right now there's a fire plug in front, and that probably is sufficient triangle vision right there, but let me run the calculation to make sure it's lengthy enough.
And Mr. City Manager, also, I think we have a lot of plates in play. We've got the striping issue, the olive issue, and then we also have the question of the bus stop. I'm just wondering if maybe discussion about these items amongst 5 non-engineers. I wonder if it might be better to, or one of the options might be to send it back to the Public Works Subcommittee for, and with the time frame, would the time frame work for that?
Certainly, that's again council's purview. If you'd like to have the Public Works Subcommittee consider it further, I think they did review it. The Public Works Subcommittee members and wanted to bring it forward for council's consideration. I think if you wanted to give the authority to your city engineer to really do the kind of technical engineering evaluation and address that appropriately, that's something that I think the city engineer
No, indeed. Just tell me, go ahead and make it within the vision triangle, and I'll make it such.
There is, as the mayor mentioned, a consideration of potentially establishing a bus stop, which would then predicate putting additional red paint along the curb to support that bus stop. That is going to be subject to future discussion and conversation about the route with Sonoma County Transit. Actually, just this week, we've requested a meeting with Brian Albee, the Sonoma County Transit Manager, to review some recommendations, particularly presented by Councilmember Cruz, about how some of the stops might be addressed to facilitate transit ridership, particularly given the council's direction on the fare fee program. So we're going to be meeting with the transit director to address some modifications. Ultimately, I think that would go back through the process and come back to council for your support and approval. So at that time, there may be, if the route can be adjusted in such a way to support a bus stop in front of the library, then council could weigh in at that particular time about painting the right curb to support that. But I think if you made a decision tonight, it wouldn't necessarily hamper future decisions about the bus stop, should you be in a position to enable your city engineer to kind of make a decision on the vision triangle.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mark, did you say that the olive bush is already gone?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that's been taken care of. As far as the, I really hate to see us lose 4 parking spots. I remember when those 4 houses were slated in front of the Planning Commission behind the Goodwill. Chair Shanahan mentioned that on a Sunday morning, the street, Cloverdale Boulevard, is just packed with cars, and he's absolutely right. So for us to lose 4 spots would really be devastating. I'd really like to see it cut back as much as possible. And as far as the bus stop goes, there's already one on the east side. Maybe if we just relocated that up closer to the crossing, that might work as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And at this time, I'm going to open it up to members of the public. Would anyone like to come forward and comment on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back up to the council. And this time, I'll start to my right. What's your preference, Councilmember Cruz?
Well, we definitely need to wait on the route and the sitting for bus stop and so on, because it is something that is not under our control. We can request it, however, it has to be in compliance with all of traffic laws and engineering and access to get on the bus, ADA and so on. So that rerouting would be a more complex issue. I think right now what we should just look at is just the crosswalk, maybe moving the stop closer to the library and doing the visual triangle.
Nothing new to add, Madam Mayor. I just would like to see us save as many spots as possible. And yeah, that's it.
Councilmember Brickham?
Yeah, parking is an issue there, because I've been to plenty of meetings there where I had to walk a couple blocks to get there. So I would say that I would like to grant the city engineer discretionary authority to look at the situation, and I'm sure you'll be logical about the way you do it, but try and save as much
That's
parking.
what engineering is,
Yeah,
logic.
that's what you do, So I'd just like to see us save as much as we can for parking.
Councilmember Turner.
Yes, so I would also like to afford our city engineer, public works director, the opportunity to paint red curb up to the 80 feet requested, but to continue your deliberations with the library, start where you see fit, take some feedback, do with it what you will.
And actually, Ashton, I'm sure you use the library frequently. Do you have anything to weigh in? Are you driving yet?
No, I'm not. I don't really have much to say on the issue.
Okay. All right. You're a pedestrian, I can tell, as am
Yeah.
I. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's heading for engineering school. I'm comfortable with letting the city engineer use his best judgment, as he always does. And also, I think you're so aware that we need that parking. And I'm at a loss as to why the library would want to lose that parking out front, because again, their parking lot is very limited. They already have a red stripe in front of the whole building for the fire trucks, I'm assuming, because it's the ingress and egress is a little weird. Oh, certainly.
During the Public Works Subcommittee, I got the gist that their board had given them ideas on how they believed they could improve their ability to pull in and out of the library. One notable vehicle was a reoccurring topic. It was a very large RV that was spoken about that kind of spent a long period of time parked in this spot. So the red curb was kind of like an idea to just negate that completely. And I think the direction that we're moving in gives our Public Works Director the opportunity to say, okay, the olive tree's gone. Let's do 3 weeks. Tell me if it's gotten better or worse. Okay, we've come out 40 feet. We compromised 2 spots, but we saved 2. Let's talk in 2 months. Tell me if this is approved or not. Let's let some seasons pass through. I don't believe it was a deal breaker by any means to not go the full 80 feet. I just believe it was their best idea of how to negate some of those recurring issues.
It sounds to me, correct me if I'm wrong, city engineer, that a lot of times people have a problem, but they don't really professionally know how to make the solution. And that might have been the motivation behind this. So actually, Chief, have we seen any problems with RVs or overnight parking, or people trying to park overnight at the library?
I have not had any reports on that. Nothing that she's.
There was a truck.
There was a truck, a couple trucks at night, okay.
Yeah, I have not had any reports of that
Okay.
that I'm aware of. That could have happened prior to me, but
Okay.
nothing has come my way.
Because if it's if there's actually an enforcement issue that needs to happen rather than eliminating parking, city manager, or what are you? City engineer, would you be able to ask that as part of the process?
Oh, absolutely.
Getting to the bottom of this?
We could also consider, putting a parking restriction in terms of time.
Right, and that's where I was going with that, is that if it
limit.
seems to be that that this is really an enforcement issue, then there might just be better options than just painting a red stripe 80 feet down the curb, so. It sounds like there's some consensus around this. Do you have adequate direction, or do we need to make a motion to?
Mayor, I think you've provided adequate direction to staff, and particularly to city engineer, to give some flexibility in how this issue can be addressed. Really looking at division triangles is an appropriate way to kind of start and work with the library to ensure that their interests are addressed. Obviously, for the benefit of the community, staff responded very quickly to remove the existing tree and made every effort to try to preserve it and relocate it, but given all the infrastructure, it just was very challenging. So we're sensitive to the library's concerns, particularly related to traffic safety, but we also are trying to address the need for parking in this area. So I think your direction is clear.
So Councilmember Cruz, you had something?
Yeah, please clarify, David. Did this get moved to the planning subcommittee?
No.
Okay, so what was moved? What was it that was moved to the planning subcommittee?
It was a completely unrelated topic. However, for the sake of answering your question, it was dog parks.
Was it a dog park?
Yes, because we recognized at the time, and again, I don't want to get off the reservation
yeah.
here, but we recognized at the time that we weren't asking Public Works to actually build or break ground. We hadn't identified an area, so we moved it more to a planning and development aspect of things.
Yeah,
Okay.
great, thanks for clarifying.
It all happened at the same time, so it was kind of cloud.
Any other comments or questions? Great, sounds like you have adequate direction.
Absolutely.
Great, excellent.
We do ask for a motion on the agenda.
We do ask, okay, so city manager, sounds like we need a motion, so would someone, let's see. Can someone encapsulate everything that just happened here?
Well, the council action is to recommend and provide direction to staff.
Okay.
So I think you've done that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, the option said grant the city engineer discretionary authority to restrict parking without further review.
Okay, great. And you still want to, the clerk wants to see a motion on this, or should I let you two fight it out?
What do you say?
I think your direction is clear. We can leave it to our city attorney to break the tie.
Legally, this was all under the authority of the city manager. I think that the city manager wanted the conversation here.
Okay.
All we were looking for was direction. No formal motion is needed. I think that we have a consensus, unanimous consensus here for the record as to providing the authority.
That sounds great. So Sue, it sounds like you're going to lose on this one, and we are going to move right on to item 12, approving memorandum of understanding with the Cloverdale Dispatch Association authorizing city manager to execute the memorandum of understanding on behalf of the city.
Mayor, council, if I can, with your permission, provide an overview on items 12, 13, 14, and 15, with obviously the comment that individual action on each of those items will be required by council. But I'd like to, if that's okay with you, to proceed and just give you a broad overview of all four of those items. What's before you tonight in items 12, 13, 14, and 15 are MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding with your Cloverdale Dispatch Association, MOU with your Cloverdale Police Officers Association, an MOU with the Cloverdale Classified Service Employees Association, and last but not least, a compensation plan with the unaffiliated employees. A little bit of background on those four items. In 2017, council approved MOUs and a compensation plan that was covered the period of July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2019. Prior to that, staff has been engaged in labor negotiations with the three represented groups and to prepare successor MOUs and a successor compensation plan with the unaffiliated employees. What's the result of that negotiation is included in your packet, and I'll give you an overview of the proposed terms of those MOUs. We came to agreement on an amended MOU that would cover the period from July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2021. All four of those agreements include a cost of living adjustment totaling 5% over the 2 years. For POA, CDA, and unaffiliated, that 5-year cost of living adjustment results in a 3-year cost of living adjustment for fiscal year 2019-20, and a cost of living adjustment of 2% in 2021. With respect to the classified group, that cost of living adjustment is 2.5% for fiscal year 19-20 and 2.5% for fiscal year 2021, both resulting in a 5% cost of living adjustment over those 2 years. With respect to the POA and the CDA agreement, there was additional changes to those MOUs, that kind of cleanup language around a dues deduction that reflect a current law, uniform allowances, sick leave incentive program, as well as merit step increases. There was also a provision for both POA and CDA to provide what's referred to as a shift differential of an additional $1 per hour for those employees that work after 7 p.m. in the evening, and establishment of a wellness incentive program. With respect to classified, one of the major changes was to move certain employees from the unaffiliated group to the classified group. Those employees are largely those employees that are within the finance and administration department, and to basically become represented employees, and that's reflected in the council agenda report. One note that I wanted to report is that the MOU for classified inadvertently missed the office specialist position in the list of covered positions. It is in the Exhibit A to the MOU in terms of the pay scale, but it just was, the title was missed in that, and would recommend that council reflect that in your motion, that you'd be amending the MOU to include the office specialist position.
Did you also get the typo at the top of page 300? I said that to Kevin. Did you catch that earlier?
I did not, but I'll note that.
I think you have it. We state 5%, and then parentheses it says 10%.
Okay.
So that needs to be corrected.
We'll make that note.
Which one? Was the text correct, or was the number correct?
And that's page 300?
300, yeah, top of page 300.
Let's take a look.
That might matter.
students working in a class?
It's on the top. It's that third line.
Madam Mayor, I can read it verbatim.
It's right up on the
if I
top.
may.
Yeah, third line down from the top.
Right, that provision, I believe is accurate. It reflects a.
Well, it says 6 months will be entitled to a 5% open paren, 10% closed paren increase.
Yeah, it should be 10%.
Okay, there you go.
So it's a correction of the typed word 5
Right.
to 10%, noting that the 5% increase would be applicable for the first 6 months, so it's an additional incentive if that employee works out of class.
Rather get into an argument now than later.
Okay.
So, great. Thank you.
Last but not least, particularly with respect to the MOU with the Cloverdale Police Officers Association, there is a negotiated increase in the post-certificate pay for various certificates, and that is also reflected in the MOUs that are in your packet. And finally, there is the elimination of the Good Friday holiday and replacement with a Christmas Eve holiday. Mayor, that really concludes just a broad overview of the changes in the MOUs. What staff is recommending tonight is that the council, by resolution, approve the MOU with the Cloverdale Dispatch Association, by resolution approve the MOU with the Cloverdale Police Officers Association, by resolution approve the MOU with the Cloverdale Classified Employees Association, and finally approve by resolution an amended compensation plan for your unaffiliated employees. For reference, each of the agenda reports does identify the fiscal or financial impact associated with approval of those MOUs. Staff has analyzed the total impact, and based on those 4 agreements, the total increase in cost to the city would be $175,000 over the fiscal year, of which $132,000 would be the impact to the general fund. Subject to your approval of those resolutions, staff would bring back a budget amendment at your next meeting for your approval, reflecting those, the approved MOUs and the cost to our general fund, as well as the other funds that make up that support the funding for staff.
And Councilmember Cruz, you're recusing yourself from item 16. Item 16.
Are we going?
No. And then just to follow up, do you need us to introduce them one at a time? Okay, and when we get to that point.
Right, and in my presentation, I didn't cover item 16 as
And we'll
the
go
city
to 60,
attorney.
yeah. I believe, yeah, you'll leave the dais, and our city attorney will take over at that point, if I'm understood. Okay, great. So at this time, are there any questions or any other typos from the council? I haven't seen it. Okay, at this point, I will then open it up to the public. Would anyone like to come forward and comment on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back up. Is there any discussion, or would someone like to start us down the list?
I know how difficult this is. Good work. Now, we've got it for a year, and so now we'll have to go through this all again. I just have to say good work, and I'm willing to offer the resolution if no one else has anything to say.
I just want to echo the good work, and Kev, first time labor negotiating, well done. Thank you for your hard work.
Yes, and Assistant City Manager Thompson gets special recognition. I wish we had a certificate for you, or a medal, or something like that, but you did a great job. Thank you for your professionalism and your focus and your patience on this item.
Yep.
Anyone else? Any other discussion? Okay, great. You want to start the list?
Sure. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Cloverdale approving a memorandum of understanding with the Cloverdale Dispatch Association and authorizing the city manager to execute the memorandum of understanding.
I will second.
Okay. Councilmember Cruz. Councilmember Brigham.
Aye.
Councilmember Turner.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Walter.
Aye.
Mayor Bagby.
Aye. Would someone like to offer the next item?
I will. I move that we approve memorandum of understanding with the Cloverdale Police Officers Association and authorizing the city manager to execute the memorandum of understanding on behalf of the city of Cloverdale.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Councilmember Cruz.
Aye.
Councilmember Brigham.
Aye.
Councilmember Turner.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Walter.
Aye.
Mayor Bagby.
Aye.
All right, I'll take my turn here. Madam Mayor, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cloverdale approving a memorandum of understanding between the Cloverdale Classified Service Employees Association and the City of Cloverdale, and authorizing the city manager to execute the memorandum of understanding.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Councilmember Turner.
Aye.
Councilmember Brigham.
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Walter.
Aye.
Mayor Bagby.
Aye. And is there a motion for item 15?
I move that to approve an amended compensation plan for unaffiliated employees. So, recommendation for city manager.
Oh, what's the number? We don't have a number?
We don't put.
We don't do numbers anymore.
All these new rules. Irene has been busy.
Okay.
You're on 15?
Yeah, it's item 15.
On 15, item
Yeah.
15. Great, and we need a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Cruz. Councilmember Brigham.
Aye.
Councilmember Turner.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Walter.
Aye.
Mayor Bagby.
Aye. Thank you. All right. I think we're going to be doing a little dance on item 16. So Councilmember Cruz will be recusing herself, and I believe, who's leaving the dais?
It's the mayor's discretion. All senior staff can leave
All
and sit down in the audience if you prefer.
Don't go far.
Okay.
Plank is closed, so.
And the reason for this is the item does involve contracts with some of the senior staff members.
Yeah,
I
Ashton,
think
you
that
can
that the perception issue is conflict issues. Anytime a contract's involved, the participants or of that contract cannot be involved in the making of it. In this case, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez, you have the floor.
Mayor, members of the council, the item before you is a resolution that actually involves a lot of folks that just stepped down.
Yeah.
It involves your senior staff and your city manager. It involves city manager, your assistant city manager, which is your community development director, your police chief, finance director, and your city engineer, also the public works director, and also the city clerk. As it's normal, this council usually, when it goes through labor negotiations, as you just adopted the new MOUs, it also considers senior staff, the at-will folks, the folks that have contracts. As you know, every time senior staff is hired, there's usually a contract that comes before the council. That is what sets the benefits. And with some of our senior staff, we actually have salaries schedules as well. We're kind of moving towards a salary schedule. And you'll see that come for your other positions that don't have it, like your finance director, working on that, for your city manager, for your city engineer as well, having some kind of schedules. But right now, as you see, the resolution's a little complicated, but what it does is for all your positions, it basically also establishes the COLA that we discussed for some of your MOUs. It's a 2.5% COLA, the cost of living adjustment, effective retroactive to July 1st, 2019, and then another 2.5% cost of living adjustment effective July 1st, 2020, and that was to basically have the same adjustments of the total of 5% as your other employees. That's really all the changes that this resolution makes, and again, it has been the practice of council to consider, and as council did, the at-will employees as well, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any questions? Great. Well, with that, would someone like to move the item?
Give it to the
Oh,
public.
sorry, you're right. Let's open it to public. I'm starting to get sleepy here. All right, would any member of the public like to come forward and comment on this item? All right. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Is there any further deliberation, or would someone like to offer the item? Great. Yep.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll offer this resolution by title only, and I'd just like to say On behalf of this council member, I do appreciate the work that our senior staff does. I know we try and reward you the best we can, and sometimes small cities like Cloverdale, we scrape and we try and find it, but we do always appreciate your work. With that being said, Madam Mayor, City of Cloverdale City Council Resolution 2019, resolution of the City Council of the City of Cloverdale amending the salaries of the city manager, assistant city manager, community development director, chief of police, finance director, city engineer, public works director, and the city authorizing the city attorney to prepare amendments to the at-will employment agreements as necessary, authorizing the mayor to execute the amendment to the city manager's employment agreement, and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement, the agreements necessary to the employee. Let me just make this a little larger. To the employee agreements for the assistant city manager / community development director, chief of police, finance director, city engineer / public works director, and the city clerk.
I will second.
Councilmember Brigham?
Aye.
Councilmember Turner?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Walter?
Aye.
Mayor Begley?
Aye. Thank you. Come on back up.
I wish I could. But I can't.
You didn't own shit everywhere.
I don't.
Getting all settled back in. All right. And then now we'll move on to item 17, funding request from Kingdom Development for the Cherry Creek Supportive Affordable Housing Project.
This is the item that I have to recuse myself from because my property, my home, adjoins the property that this building is going to take place on. I wish I could.
Mayor, council members, this is a request from Kingdom Development and the Wallace House for financial assistance for the Cherry Creek Affordable Housing Project. Just real quick background, back in May, we entered an exclusive negotiating agreement with Kingdom and Wallace House. In September, the Planning Commission approved the design of the project, including CEQA and all of that. At the same time, staff hired Kaiser Marston, which is a financial feasibility company in San Francisco that we've used in the past to perform an analysis, and that's attached on your staff report. Lastly, the Police and Admin Subcommittee did review this request last month and recommended it be brought forward to the council. Real quick, the project is 24 units, 1 studio, 6 1-bedrooms, 8 2-bedrooms, and 9 3-bedrooms. And we've attached the plans to the project just for reference sake. All the units will be affordable to 50% of AMI or less. So if the attachment 3 kind of talks about what those rents look like in order to fit into those categories. And there'll be 1 on-site manager unit. In terms of the funding request, we laid out in the agenda report, the initial $1.9 million in unspent bond proceeds was always kind of going along with the project. We did discuss that when we were talking about the possibility of an RFP, but we never really formalized that for this project, so that's one of the requests. Additional request is a pre-development loan from the city's Inclusionary Housing Fund for $450,000. That would include activities like engineers, architects, and all the pre-development activities that have to occur to get a project off the ground. The applicant has also requested sort of a backfill loan agreement for around $1.6 million based on the sale of the Times Square property. And I'm going to ask that William from Kingdom come up, not right now, but and give us a little bit more detail on how that commitment would work. We had a good conversation today, and I think he can clarify what exactly that means. And this loan would only be executed if no other funding could be available. And I'm going to, again, let him explain that. There is one correction in the Kaiser Marston report. It talks about the the potential $1.6 million loan being drawn down over time that would actually be used for construction costs that would be more upfront funding. So we've laid out some options in the agenda report. The first one is to provide staff direction to come back with an agreement committing the $1.9 million in unspent bond proceeds. We've also added the request for an operational plan for services on each one of these options so we can understand the level of service that's going to occur at the site, and just so we have a good understanding of that. The second option would be to bring back an agreement committing the 1.9 and the $450,000 from the Inclusionary Housing Fund. I did mention that the Inclusionary Housing Fund, it has about $501,000 in it currently. We do use a portion of that for some staff's salaries, just so you know that's a possibility there. The third option would be to, again, return with the 1.9, an agreement for the 1.9 million unspent bond proceeds, the $450,000 inclusionary, and then provide some sort of agreement for the 1.6, and again, we'll have William come up and describe what that is. The fourth option, and of course there's other options, these are just the ones that we thought of. You can give us other direction, we can give them commit a different amount of money, we could commit a certain amount of money now, and maybe later after certain milestones occur, we could revisit it. I think it's important that we really press upon the applicant here that we really want them to go out and seek other funding, county, state, grants, there's CDBG. Again, we had a good conversation today, and I think they're willing to do that. But I think really the city money should be some of the last money that goes into the project. And so we would expect, or we would hope that they would go out, fill as much gap as they can through other funding, and then come back to us with an amount at the end. David, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Thank you, Kevin, for your overview. I wanted to, just a couple comments. One was with respect to the request for funding from your Inclusionary Housing Fund. That is identified on page 64 of your adopted budget. As Kevin mentioned, the fund balance, I think, as of this week was approximately $500,000. We are projecting and it's identified in the adopted budget that the ending fund balance for the Inclusionary Housing Fund would be $395,000. So the funding request that is included in your packet does exceed what we expect would be the ending fund balance for that fund. So obviously to fulfill that request entirely would mean additional funding outside of the Inclusionary Fund, which typically would mean general fund dollars. And once the Inclusionary Housing Fund is exhausted of its funding balance, it will be necessary for future cost allocations that are made to that budget for housing services to be made to other funds, so there will be impacts to other funds. And so I just want to make sure that council's cognizant of the potential financial impacts to your general fund as well as your inclusionary fund related to the funding request this evening. My assumption is that that funding request was probably based at looking at the budget when it was adopted and looking at the top line fund balance, not taking into account some of the use of those funds, which also include services that we pay for, namely including the homeless count as being one of those, as well as contract services for housing. So I just want to make sure that council was aware of that. One other aspect to their funding request is the tax credits that the project is seeking, and staff agrees that is a very important funding source for the project. Obviously, we want to support receipt of tax credits, and one of the questions I hope council will ask of the developers is a more in-depth overview of the developer's intent in obtaining those funds. And last but not least, as Kevin indicated, there is a recommendation to include a request for a service plan. Services are obviously an important component of providing this type of affordable housing project. And you may want to inquire about the nature and type of services that might be provided, whether there's an interest in participating in coordinated entry and the Housing First, through the county to get a sense of how services may be provided at this project. This is a really an important milestone that the project's being brought forward. There's been a lot of design work that's been done. The design work's been approved by the commission. I think it represents a very nice looking project, and a lot of what the investment of public dollars in this project would do would go into site improvements. Particularly looking at frontage improvements. There's really no sidewalk there now. Putting in the appropriate driveway, putting in other public improvements, including sewer and water that would support the future development, all of which would add value to the property, is a way I think council can support providing funding to this project, because it's really investing in your own public infrastructure. So that's something just to think about when you're evaluating this request. And the allocation of those costs between the improvements to the site and the services that would be provided to what we hope to be our future residents of that project.
Just one more thing for the council. You probably know this for the public as well. The Inclusionary Housing Fund is money that we collect on when large projects are developed. We collect a certain amount of money on new homes being developed as a fee. So we do have a lot of discretion on what we can use that money for, but just to give you an indication, so if we had a lot of large subdivisions coming in, that money would be replenished. The largest subdivision we have currently under evaluation is the Baumgartner, who plans to provide his own affordable housing on site, so they would not be subject to the fee. So.
Great, thank you. Any questions for staff at this point?
No technical questions at this time, thank you.
Anything you want to clarify or?
Thank you. I don't know if this is the appropriate time or not, but there's a couple scenarios here, and on item number 2, the summary of findings, at page 313, the cost per unit on number 2 is, if I'm reading this correctly, $243,000 per unit, as opposed to option number 3, where it's $310,000 per unit. How does that stack up against the rest of the county? Do we have any specs on that? I mean, or similar projects like this?
Well, there is in the back of the Kaiser Marston report is a comparison chart. Generally it is high. It is skewed a little bit because the land cost is listed at $3.5 million, which we kind of think is inflated. So that does increase the cost. There's also the idea that the service component is costs more money. So a lot of affordable housing projects, they put them up, they have a manager, there's not the wraparound service that's being proposed here, and it doesn't directly affect that, although it does affect their ability to borrow money, because a portion of what they're getting as rental income and revenue has to be devoted to the service. And I think does that sound right? Yeah. So the low number of units to the constricted site, there's a lot of things that are going into play that it is a high number. It definitely is.
And I appreciate that, and I recollect when that property was first acquired on behalf of the city with the from our housing fund. It was at the height of the market, if I'm not mistaken. So that's why the costs are so high. I'd really like to see it with that real estate cost backed out of there a little bit too, so we kind of know what the sticks and bricks are costing us without the real estate. I know.
We have that in there. Can you point out to us? Because actually, that leads to my question. So, Kevin, I was going to actually ask you where the
It's page 335 of your agenda packet. There's a cost comparison,
and it's about 90,000. So if you pull if you pulled the real estate value out, it was about 90,000. If you're leaving it in, it's about 243. Is that correct?
You have to do
And so, but my question to Kevin before we have the applicant come up and before we open it is kind of just for, for our edification and maybe the public. Am I right or kind of right or completely wrong to kind of say because the land, because we purchased it at such a high price, so the land is fairly inflated, and because of the nature of the property and the required setbacks, the density is also, we're not getting a lot of bang for our buck on the density. So you have a high real estate price and a low density potential. Could we kind of say that we really kind of need to meet in the middle to understand the value that we're getting or the cost that we're paying per unit? Is that, or is that my
No, I think
completely
that's
off base?
fair. There's one other factor is they are going to be renting these to 50% of AMI. They could go higher under the affordable housing rules to get a little more revenue, but they are keeping that lower, and so the revenue through the pro forma of the project is lower, so that supports less mortgage.
And Mayor, to your question, it did back out the land costs from the total construction costs, and what that does is it brings down the total requested subsidy to $236,000 per unit, which is in line with the other projects that are identified in the table, which are for the most part within the North County region of Sonoma, Santa Rosa, and Napa. So all other costs would be fairly similar.
Do you have anything else, Jason?
Not for this portion.
Not yet.
You're ready to. So at this point, I'll actually invite the applicant to come forward, and then after that, if it'll be open for public discussion. So also, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and esteemed council members. My name is William Leach. I am the president of Kingdom Development, a nonprofit organization that comes alongside community organizations and helps them develop impactful community projects. Number one, a huge thank you to Kevin Thompson and the other city folks, not only Kaiser Marson and Associates, but attorneys, and there was a lot of feedback that we needed as applicants to be able to give you a great proposal, and we couldn't have done it without the team, so we really appreciate it. The request before you is to redevelop the Trade Creek Village, to utilize the $1.9 billion or $1.9 million of bond for
California.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
I wouldn't need that much.
We're not in Orange County anymore. Right?
Exactly. To utilize the $1.9 million in bond proceeds prior to them going back to the Department of Finance, and that there's a specific time frame. Some of this request, especially the $1.6 million Times Square backstop, as I call it, is a request to be sensitive to the time frame. But first, I'd like to talk about the inclusionary housing request. I think it might have been Dave or Kevin who mentioned that we did just blindly make a request based on, the fund balance is roughly $500,000, let's ask for less than that. We'd like to modify our request here, knowing that staff says that the end of the year balance is targeted to be $395. We'd like to lower our request down to that $395 number. We absolutely believe that cities should use their inclusionary housing funds or redevelopment dollars, so to speak, to help pay for the cost of staff working on those projects. So we definitely don't want to deplete that fund so you can't pay your staff costs with it. So we'd like to modify that. Instead of asking for $450, maybe ask for $395, or separately, maybe you give your staff direction to negotiate an appropriate amount. And then maybe they work with us on what's right, whether that's $350, $395, whatever. The usage of it is super important to us that we have some of that inclusionary housing fund to pay for architecture and engineering. I believe Kevin alluded to, we're expending funds to get permits for your property, and we're asking you for site control of that property. That's probably the number one biggest thing we need your action here tonight, is to give us site control. And that site control would say, if you guys can get all the funding needed from the state, the county, and so on, then we will give you a long-term ground lease. We will let you lease this property from us for 70 to 90 years, And at the end of that lease, the city will go back to owning the property and all of its stuff without us having any rights. It's that site control we need to apply for more funding. We can't apply to the county yet. We can't apply to the state until we have any kind of site control from you. And so that's the number one most important thing. So the way we would get site control is typically through a disposition and development agreement, and I believe staff would be working with council to draft such an agreement, and that would help us then go apply for more financing. We've also asked for the Inclusionary Housing Fund, which we are reducing that request down to an amount that staff thinks is appropriate. I can't imagine what that number is, but maybe $395 or $350 or something that staff might know better than we do. Lastly, the more complicated aspect of tonight's ask is the idea of a backstop. So when we originally proposed this project to you, we really want to help people who are at the deepest levels of affordability. We want to be able to help people who are in poverty, who are homeless, who make less than 30% of median income. And when you try to serve that population, the rent that you collect, you may not collect rent for the first few months because they can't afford to pay it, but once you even start collecting rent, the rent that they pay is not enough to support the operations of the property. And so when you go that deep of targeting to help those folks in that income strata, you use project-based vouchers, okay? The project-based voucher says no matter what the tenant pays, the government, it typically comes from HUD, but the government will pay the rest so that this property can continue to meet its debt service, pay for its supportive services and whatnot. And so we have always and will continue to propose to obtain project-based vouchers from the county. The city doesn't have its own housing authority, so the county has your population's set of vouchers. So we want to ask the county for that. The county, I think at the first meeting when we discussed whether it should be sole sourced or an RFP, the county came up and said, hey, we do give vouchers, we do give home funds, we do give CDBG funds. We wait to get any kind of an applicant, whether it's from these guys or from whoever you work with, but we look forward to a proposal to be part of the project. Unfortunately, this year they did not allow anybody to apply for vouchers or CDBG funds, and so we're hopeful that it was just a one-time thing, that in 2019 they didn't allow people to apply for vouchers. Had they, we would have asked the city maybe to be a co-applicant because we didn't have site control yet. But regardless, they didn't let anybody apply. And so we're hopeful that whatever vouchers they got in 2019 are going to be made available in 2020. Every year they do get more vouchers from HUD, and so we're hopeful they will open it up. What we would like to do is, as soon as we get site control from you, we want to submit an unsolicited proposal to the county. We don't want to wait for them to open up an RFP. We don't want to wait for them to ask for proposals. We just want to go to their door with our full request. We'll ask the city staff to maybe write a support letter for that request, and we want to ask right away. If they say, hey, you need to wait till summer when we come out with a voucher proposal, or you need to wait for next November when we come out with a voucher proposal, we can. However, we would miss if we did it in a linear fashion. If we waited for them to make vouchers available and then applied for tax credits, we would not be able to apply for tax credits in 2020. We would then be forced to apply in 2021, and the rules are changing between 2020 and 2021. Okay? The governor has mandated that the tax credit committee change their rules to incentivize higher production counts and lower cost per unit. And this project is not going to fare as well in 2021 because it's a small project, and with that there's some diseconomies of scale. It's a higher cost per unit than the state average. And I'm appointed by the treasurer to be on that rule changing committee, and I will be there with them changing the rules to incentivize larger projects that are more cost efficient. And that's good for the state as a whole, maybe bad for this one project, right? And so from a public policy standpoint, not only do you have a time sensitive, I want to get my $1.9 million into a project prior to, I think it was 2021, but also we have the tax credits. We are hoping to get $12 million in tax credits from the state to invest in this project. Our chances go down significantly in 2021. So with that window of time and the desire to not go in a linear fashion, we are proposing this idea to you, that you would say, we will make a commitment to provide a conditional commitment. We will provide up to $1.6 million. It may end up being 1.2, it may end up being 1.4, but up to no more than 1.6 million to the project if we sell the Times Square property by 12 months from now or something like that. And if the applicant makes every attempt to obtain project-based vouchers and fails due to the county not providing any to the city of Cloverdale, right? So we want you to create a backstop. And what that will allow us to do is that will allow us to go to the state and say, will you give us your $12 million of tax credits? I can be feasible one way or the other. Either I'll get the vouchers from the county, or I have the city's backstop saying, if we absolutely can't get vouchers in the next 18 months, they'll provide the Times Square proceeds as a backstop, okay? So it's not our goal to use the Times Square proceeds for the project, but rather have it as Plan B. If we do Plan B, if you're willing to write Plan B up front, then the state will rely upon that or the vouchers. They'll say, hey, they have one way to make it or another. Then we can apply twice in 2020, and I can almost assure you we will be successful in 2020 based on how the rules favor small projects with large investments from the city, okay? It's something I'm not normally a big fan of, but for this project, it's great, the current rules. And so we're asking you on that item to pre-write, we have a Plan B, that if they attempt diligently and the county denies them and will not give vouchers to the city of Cloverdale for this project, and we are able to sell the Times Square property, then we will provide up to 1.6 million. And that's the initial explanation of that. I'm happy to take questions. It's a very complex topic, but I really appreciate everything that you're considering and all staff's hard work.
Mr. Leach, I didn't realize you were a betting man. Thank you for the explanation, though. That was very thorough. So at this time, I will ask my council members if they have any questions for the applicant. Mr.
Just
Turner?
one. The 1.6, that's contingent on us selling the Times Square property. That's still a loan, right?
That's still a loan, yeah.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Cruz?
But if it's still a loan, what are the terms of that loan?
Typical terms, when city loans money to affordable housing projects, it is typically at a 3% interest rate, and the loan doesn't have a mandatory payment. The loan says, I would like to have 50% of the cash flow of the property used to pay back the loan. So in our world, we call that a residual receipts loan, where you don't make a mandatory payment. You say, hey, give me half of anything that's left over, and I'm going to be charging you interest. Normally what happens is the loan balloons. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. If we're lucky, we're going to have $20,000 of cash flow in any given year. So we'd give you $10,000 to pay down the loan, but your interest on it is going to be like $80,000 a year or something larger. And so the loan's going to balloon and just get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, but what's the time frame?
The time frames are typically 55 years. However, sometimes when cities make a lease agreement on a piece of property, sometimes they make the loans coterminous with the lease. So if for whatever reason your council says, I think it should be a 70-year lease, sometimes then you make it a 70-year loan, but the most typical is a 55-year loan.
Okay. However, we're talking about money we don't have.
That is correct. And if you
That
don't,
is a very bad practice in personal finance, much more when it comes to taxpayers' money.
Absolutely. And so what I would commit to you is that other than us risking our time and our effort on architecture and engineering and legal and applications to the government, we're not going to be breaking ground. We're not going to be starting the working drawings. We're not going to be doing those things until that contingency is passed. Okay? So while we may tell the state we have a plan one way or the other, okay, we aren't going to close on this deal. We aren't going to break ground until we know what the future is. So.
And according to the program that you want to apply to for funding, the deadline already passed to apply, and there's only one more application deadline, which is January.
Okay, so Councilmember Cruz, I believe you're referring to the ability to attempt to finance a project with 4% tax credits and state credits, okay?
Right.
So just recently, the state legislature passed AB 101, which provided a new $500 million available that our industry never had. And so we're super excited. We get an extra $500 million to build housing with. The governor said, I want that money to get out immediately. And so they made the ability to apply for the 2020 $500 million. You could apply in November, or you could apply in January of 2020, and if you want to enjoy that resource. We are not proposing that resource. We have not been proposing it in the past. It is a new resource, and if we were looking at contingencies, if for some reason we were unsuccessful in the next 6 to 8 months, we would look at that again for 2021 as an option, but we aren't currently proposing that mode. We're proposing 9% tax credits, which is a more generous investment by the state, and those applications are on March 1st and July 1st. So those are the 2 dates that we're trying to hit. We would like to attempt to win at both, but at a minimum, we would love to apply by July 1 so that we get the 2020 rules.
Thank you.
Go to Vice Mayor and come back to you.
Thank you. William, you know, I just don't know what the incentive is for the state/county to come out with the credits if you already have a backstop plan. I mean, they could almost double their money by investing in another program that doesn't have the backstop. So I'm not quite sure the rationale for thinking that that's an advantage.
Okay, so that's a great concern. So I believe, and let me try to restate this. The concern is if the city provides a backstop and says the applicant tries diligently and the county rejects them after 18 months of not providing the vouchers, maybe the backstop will serve as a disincentive to the county to award the vouchers. Yikes, that's...
I guess to kind of clarify, the question is, like, is it competitive, or do we just have to qualify? Does that make sense?
So you providing a backstop will make sure I know we can win at the state, okay? But I think your concern is this going to give a bad motive to the county, right? Because we want the county to invest in this. We want to ask for home funds, we want to ask for CDBG funds, and we want to ask for vouchers. Every dollar we get from them, we can reduce the request from you guys, and that is our commitment. If we were able to get 23 vouchers, we wouldn't need any 1.6 million, okay? And we wouldn't need any $300,000 of the Inclusionary Fund. But if we can only get 10 vouchers from them or 15 vouchers from them, you know, we do need some additional assistance from the city. So I have not thought of that. It is a great point. I don't know how to persuade the county to give you your share of your vouchers, right? Your population, they get vouchers because of your population, and they should expect to give you some every so often. And I really would hope after 18 months of trying to get vouchers and the city saying it's important to them, that they wouldn't use this backstop as a scapegoat. But council member, I can't speak for how bad of an incentive that will be for them. It's a good point.
So what I'm hearing for you to be able to move forward is we give staff permission to come up with a site control agreement, and we say we are willing to loan you at the most $1.6 million based on the contingency of selling a property.
That will be paid.
And based on us not getting vouchers.
And you're not getting vouchers. And then you're going to go try and get vouchers, and then you're going to come back and you're going to say this is how we succeeded or how we failed. And then we're on the hook. That's the wrong term, forgive me. Then we're at a point liable for whatever that difference may be. And so where I find myself concerned is we just created the Homeless Action Group, and if we commit the current and future dollars that we have, are we hamstringing that group's ability to have any teeth fighting the homeless in other regards, right, for other projects that come through? I mean, are we committing everything we've got?
Yeah.
In essence, the request that is before you tonight will be a significant commitment of the majority of funds that we have available for affordable housing. Whether we want to say that it could impact future initiatives and funding for activities that may come out of the homelessness community advisory group is a recommendation. It's hard to predict, but certainly it would be anticipated that there will be some requests for resources to help implement some of the strategies that may be recommended. And if you do commit all your funds, it would be very difficult otherwise to fund those initiatives with the funds that have been dedicated for affordable housing. There may be other funding sources that could be used for that, which predominantly would point towards your general fund.
And I believe we received a presentation earlier this year suggesting our general fund is not exactly in a growth pattern at the moment. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Councilmember.
I follow up. Do you have anything else? I know this will be quick. So actually, just for Mr. Thompson, sorry. You probably get where I'm going with this. When was the last time we got any vouchers from the county? And given your experience, how do you have a sense about whether or not it's competitive, or it's just that we qualify and so we get what's available? Do you have a sense of that?
So there's two, and I'm not an expert here, but there's the project-based vouchers, which would be ideal for this particular project. They would stay with the project for 15 or 20 years. And then there's the individual Section 8 vouchers, which we heard at the Homeless Action Committee that those are very competitive and they're trickling out very slowly. I did call the CDC to try to get an answer if they were going to do any project-based voucher RFPs this year. They seem to think they will, but I really couldn't get a straight answer from them. And I'm unaware of any project-based voucher programs or projects in town. I have heard of them in other cities, and they're a great tool for financing. I would just like.
Are they allocated by district or by population, or how are they?
By population, I believe.
By population,
yeah.
okay. So then theoretically, City of Cloverdale, each of the incorporated cities and population, semi-developed areas of the county would then be entitled to them by geographic
Correct.
area. Okay. This is really
it's complicated.
Really complicated.
And I'd like to add, if the council is in favor of the backstop agreement, I would recommend that not only do they go for Section 8 vouchers, but also CDBG, make it contingent on going for more than just one funding source.
And we need to open this up to the public, so, but thank you. Are there any other questions you think we should be asking at this time, Mr. Thompson?
I think you're asking the right questions. Maybe a metered approach where we can start committing some things and take a little more time to look at the other ones that are a little more, committing money that we don't have. And I think William is sincere in his when he states that he would be seeking any kind of funding that he can get. I sit on the CDBG allocation, and last March they were giving $500,000 to projects that were ready, Burbank projects in the unincorporated and the non-entitlement cities. So I do think they would have a really good shot at something like that.
Councilmember Cruz, did you have anything else for?
Yes. I do know that the state treasurer has some delayed proposals for all these projects. And one of those delayed proposals relates to coordinated entry. That would bring some tax credits. And I would like to know what is the position of your proposal in regards to coordinated entry.
So Councilmember Cruz is referring to Treasurer Ma put out a paper that said, there are changes I want to make to the tax credit program. Some of them I'm going to make immediately, and some of them I'm going to delay, okay? And the ones that she chose to delay are going to get discussed in 2020, rule changes in 2021. One of those is to follow suit with the Housing and Community Development Department, who said, we're going to start giving points. We're going to give people an advantage if they commit to 10% of their project reserving units for people from the coordinated entry system. Okay, so counties have these coordinated entry systems. They want to make sure the right type of homeless people go to the right types of projects, and it's better if you have, the county gets to have like 10 different projects it has as resources and kind of place people where they belong. Right, so that's a coordinated entry system. HCD has already made a rule to give people points for doing 10%. Treasurer Ma has put out that she likes that idea as maybe a delayed implementation for 2021. So the question was, what does this proposal say about the coordinated entry system? We stated at the previous time where we talked about sole sourcing, when the county said if you get project-based vouchers, you will need to use the coordinated entry system. We may likely require you to do housing first, and we're totally willing to comply with the requirements of the funding sources. If the project ends up being funded with tax credits alone, there is no requirement for the coordinated entry system yet. 2021 there might be, and that might be a 10% requirement for those extra points. So as it stands now, we expect to get vouchers. We expect to follow their rules of coordinated entry and housing first to however they write it in their codes. They changed it ever so slightly. HUD has just now backed down from everything has to be housing first to now they want 80% housing first and 20% other models. So it's always evolving. I don't know what the county's going to put, but we will comply with whatever the county's requirements are for the vouchers.
Once you comply, let's say you get them, and then they change it 5 years from now, you're still locked in at your initial.
Yes.
Okay.
So whatever rules, when we get the award, we're going to be subject to those rules. There are certain types of funding sources that some nonprofits will go after on an annual basis from HUD or from the county. Those, since they get them on an annual basis, they're subject to new rules on an annual basis. What we're asking for is a 20-year commitment, as Kevin alluded to. So for the first 20 years, we would not be subject to any rule changes.
So you're saying, the follow-up on my question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So my question then, as a follow-up is, you would be grandfathered in whatever agreement is in 2020.
With
and
the
if
county.
there's a delayed, how they call it, if there's a delayed proposal, it would not impact you. So if they come up with 10% coordinated entry, you don't have to follow that.
Okay, so if we win tax credits in 2020, which I think is optimal so your money gets invested by 2021, and it's optimal because the rules are better, then the state will not impose any coordinated entry on this project. However, if we get the county vouchers and they require coordinated entry for half the units or 25% of the units, I don't know what they're going to require, but whatever they require, we will be subject to, and we will follow the county's rules. But I think you're referring to the state, and currently the state has no minimum requirement.
I have an operational question, Colleen, if I may. I know some of the major healthcare providers in California have been tasked with improving mental health access and things of that nature. And if I'm remembering correctly your testimony over what Wallace House provides as a whole, understanding that Kingdom is helping you develop your site, have you entertained or been able to go down the avenue of approaching any of these major healthcare providers about some of the dollars they're allocating for your operations?
Well, let's see, the best way to answer that. I'll give you an example of how we do it currently, and we would just expand on this model. We coordinate services with the clinic, with behavioral health, with child protective services, with the various treatment centers. So for example, right now we have a number of families who graduated program and they have aftercare, and they also have active CPS cases, so they have a child protective services social worker, as well as a probation officer in many instances. So we're leveraging
Excuse me, what's
all of
CPA
those.
for the public's understanding?
Sorry?
CPA stands for?
Child Protective Services. Yes. Right. This is a pretty typical client that we have currently. So we'll leverage all of those resources. They also benefit from child protective services, social workers, and mental health care providers. So we would continue with that model and coordinate all those services for our clients. including behavioral health.
Wonderful. I believe there's an opportunity for dollars for you in that regard. I would really like to encourage you to seek some of the rather large healthcare providers that are in the area, and just see what's available for you. I know Cloverdale is finally becoming more visible in that area. And I have to tread so lightly on this topic, so I hope you can forgive some of this, but I really want to encourage you to seek some of the major healthcare providers in this area, what options they have for you.
Right, and so we currently also work with the whole person care program out of
It
the
wouldn't be,
clinic.
forgive me for interrupting, but it wouldn't
Yeah.
be so much for their services, is they're bolstering these communities with dollars to continue what they're
Sure.
doing already.
Right.
And I'd like to see you get a grant.
Right, and so there will be, and we currently have a small population, or relatively small population of clients who have what are considered severe mental illness. Most of the dollars I think you're referring to might be for that population of clients, and absolutely, if we go coordinated entry and housing first, we're going to be dealing with that population, and that would allow us to qualify. We wouldn't be able to qualify until we actually accept those types of clients.
I understand. Thank
Right.
you. I appreciate your clarification.
Are there any other questions for Colleen right now? Otherwise, I think are we ready to open it up to the public? Right. Don't go far. Would any members of the public like to come forward and make a comment? And please state your name for the record, and don't forget to write your name down for Sue. I'm working for you, Sue.
Good evening. My name is Lariva Miles, and I am a resident of Cloverdale. After listening to William, is that your name? Your proposal, I have a couple of questions. I've worked in real estate for a long time, not putting together the types of projects that you're talking about, but based on all of the details that I overheard you mention, I have a couple of questions. It seems like this proposal has a lot of moving parts, and I just wanted to go back to what you said about once you get site control, that the city would have a long-term lease to lease back the property for 70 to 90 years. And I was just wondering, how much is that going to cost the city over that period of time? And I don't know, I didn't take a look at all of the facts and figures before I came to speak, but do you have a detailed proposal which has all of the different steps that he's talked about, that has a budget that covers all of the, how much each of these steps is going to cost?
Mayor, if I may, included in the agenda packet is a detailed financial analysis.
Okay.
That includes a pro forma for, well, technically covers, I think, 57 years, though typically the affordable housing agreement that we would enter into for this type of project is 55 years. It just, the way it was developed, covered that additional 2 years. It kind of filled up the sheet, so to speak. So,
and not the 70 to 90 years that he has mentioned.
Right. The difference being that typically from, well, from a financial perspective, the pro forma requires the minimum period that the project be required to be affordable, which is 55 years. Mm-hmm. What I think William is referring to is a long-term site lease. Typically, cities like Cloverdale, other cities, would enter into a 99-year lease. I think William suggested, a 70 to 90, meaning that it can be flexible. I think at a minimum we'd want it to be 55 years to correspond with the period of affordability. But if the developer agreed to a longer period of time and the city council agreed, we certainly could do a longer-term land lease for to cover a longer period of time.
Okay. I was also curious as to what type of development organization you represent, and how do they make their profit from what they're doing? I mean, how do you make your money? How do you pay people to do all of the steps?
If I may, Mayor, so that we facilitate dialogue with the council, just point, Ms. Miles, which I think is a very good question, again, to the pro forma. The pro forma does provide an analysis of how the funds would be used for this project, which include a developer fee. A developer fee is a pretty standard line item. Obviously, they're doing a lot of work, and work doesn't get done for free. So there's a developer fee that's established. Usually it's a percentage of the project, and I think that's what you see in the pro forma itself is that developer fee. And I think that's pretty standard in the affordable housing business, is that there is that development fee to reimburse the developer who's undertaking, quite a bit of risk to build these projects.
Okay. And my last question is, how many times has your organization worked on this type of project before? How much experience do you have in doing this?
Fair enough. Oh, yeah, William, please.
Thanks for the wonderful questions. The answer to the last question is this would be our 8th project that is solely for homeless. This will be our 30th project that's new construction in nature, and this would be roughly my 60th project overall that's affordable. So some experience in that. And I just wanted to clarify that the city will own this land, and they're giving us a lease to enjoy it for hopefully 99 years. We aren't giving the city a lease, the city is giving us a lease.
Oh, and feel free to do a commercial with your website and your contact information if you'd.
Oh, yes, and if you'd like more information about us, you could go to kingdomdevelopment.net. I'm happy to give you business cards also, and staff answered the other questions.
Do you mind leaving a small pile just in case anybody from the public would like to take one? Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Would anyone else from the public like to come forward and ask any questions, any clarifying? I'll bring it back to the council, and I'll just do a short commercial. I was fortunate when I was down in Southern California for a conference. I got to visit not with Kingdom Development staff, but actually with one of their development partners, and got a tour of a current building and a future site, and they're legit. I'll just, the projects are wonderful. Their attention to detail, especially on the, what do we call the homework, or the community area, the community space, the children's areas, and they have areas for adults that are not necessarily near the children areas, and which I thought was genius. And which during part of the tour, their development partner said, yes, this is something that we've learned that's very valuable, is to have something away from the tot lot where adults can kind of, have a space of their own and read or have a party or something like that too. So they're very well thought out, very designed, and very well designed, and I brought that information back to the council, so you can check out photos and information about their other projects on their website. So sorry. So at this point, I'd like to bring it back to the council or does staff have anything that they would want to interject or add at this point? So
just on the point of question about the developer fee, it is identified in the pro forma, and so you can see pretty clearly where that's identified. The Kaiser Marston did analyze it in their analysis of the overall finances for the project. They did indicate that there is an opportunity to look more closely at that, particularly from the perspective that there is an annual cost allocate or inflationary index for that fee that results in a balloon payment. You could weigh in on that. I think what's being asked is reasonable, but again, that's something that council, if you wanted to, would be to say, well, we would prefer it that it not escalate at 3%. As an example, I think that's probably tied to roughly a long-term inflationary index. But otherwise, I think that the analysis to Mrs. Miles' question was that it is addressed in the pretty detailed financial pro forma in the packet.
I'll follow up to that. I actually want to go ahead and start with Councilmember Cruz.
Yes. Regarding that fee, I did ask William about that, Ms. Mills, and he mentioned a balloon amount of 1.6 million. that, and then my question was, how would that be distributed? And how soon? And maybe you would like to answer that, William?
Yes, so the $1.6 million developer fee, which is a percentage of the development budget, which is approved by all state agencies, that $1.6 million fee is a fee that the Wallace House and Kingdom Development will be sharing together. And the allowable payment schedule for that is typically 25% when you break ground. So about 15 months from now, we would get 25% of the fee to share. Then after you finish construction, you get 25% of the fee. And then 10 months later, after it's all occupied and everybody feels like it's moving smoothly and the state gives you you did a good job, guys, then you'd get the remainder half. So it's typically paid over a 3-year period after you break ground.
And one of the questions that I also asked was, is it possible for this fee to be delayed?
You absolutely could try to, in negotiations, try to request us to take our reasonable fee at a later date. What that would do is it would get me to borrow less money from the construction lender during the process. It would save a little bit of interest. It would make us take a lot more risk, and then it would cause us to find a way to pay for our staffing another way. At that moment in time, 15 months from now, we will have been involved in the project for 2.5 years at that point, and we'll have covered staff costs for 2.5 years. We'll be hoping to recoup some at that time. So we'd ask you not to ask us to delay our money. At the most, it would save the project $10,000 in interest. If you asked us to delay $400,000 of reimbursement for a year, maybe it's more like $30,000 of interest you'd save. But the point is, we'd ask you not to. You're welcome to attempt, in negotiations, try to get us to wait for our money. It wouldn't be typical.
You have some more questions? Yeah. Go ahead.
So I know that there are different programs that you could apply for funding.
Mm-hmm.
What is the particular program that you're using now if you're not using the 4% tax credit?
Yeah, so there's 3 really great ways to get the lion's share of money needed to build affordable housing. There's the 9% tax credit program, which we're proposing to you guys. The second way is the multifamily housing program from the state HCD. And that's where they'll make a loan to this project as much as like $10 million, which would be very helpful in developing the project. That format is not allowed to be used with the 9, and it requires you to have vouchers committed to the project, okay? So if we had vouchers and we said, oh, I don't want to do the 9, I want to do MHP, we could do that in the summer also as a viable option, okay? I'm winning an MHP award for a homeless project in San Diego this month from last year's monies. So MHP is another option that would totally work if we have a voucher commitment. And then the third option is this new option that the budget came out with, is the state credits, right? Where you could do 4% credits and the new state tax credit. We haven't run any numbers on that. That typically requires a significant investment from the city. It may work with the numbers we're already proposing. I haven't run those numbers yet. It is a new option, so I like the idea of entertaining it. I'm happy to provide staff and KMA that analysis. The problem with that option is we need to apply by January 15th if we want to try for 2020 monies. And new option, we don't have site control. I don't know how fast we'll be able to get a DDA done, but I assume it won't be by January 15th. And so I assume we won't be able to apply for that version in 2020. But still, we've got the 9%, so we get 2 shots, and we could try MHP in the summer if we have a voucher commitment beforehand.
Mr. Thompson, could you clarify the timing issue?
Well, we have, when's our first council meeting in January? Is that the?
January
8th. There's a lot of things to negotiate. I think that would be pretty tough, to tell you the truth.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else that you have? Nothing. Okay. Mr. Turner, are you ready? Do you want
No more questions. If Vice Mayor has any further
Do you have
questions.
any more questions for William at this point, or do you want to just go to deliberations? I just have one question, so.
On page 313, Kevin, on item number, where the heck am I? Number 3, where we're going to commit the sale of the Times Square property proceeds to the project. That is just a portion that Alexander Valley Wellness is purchasing, correct?
Correct, and we don't really know that that's the amount that it
Okay.
will be.
All right. But it doesn't include the police lot
No.
being sold to the city. Okay, thank you.
And to clarify, and it's predicated on that sale going through.
Correct.
Okay. And then I just had a really minor question. It's after we're talking about millions of this and millions of that, but on page 323, where under recommendations, number 2, the construction manager, because it does affect the long-term financing of the project. Can that be filled by like an experienced retiree or volunteer? Construction manager it's an important job, and I think the recommendation is saying, yeah, you can do without that. It's never been my experience. But I know that we have a very qualified former, semi-retiring contractor here. We also have Habitat for Humanity recently laying off a lot of their local construction staff, and those gentlemen were mostly semi-retired anyway, and they're very seasoned construction managers. So I'm just wondering if, what's your experience with working with.
So the purpose of a construction manager is to have someone between the owner and the contractor who can speak contractor language and know when the contractor is giving you BS, right? Right. So often when you get into construction, the contractor says, oh, this wasn't in the plans, and I don't know about this, and I want to charge you this extra $1 million, right? And Colleen and I, while we both have some construction experience, it's a little hard for us to say, that's BS, use it this way, put the nails 8 inches on center, get into it, right? Since the Wallace House and Kingdom Development will be guaranteeing the construction. So once we break ground, once we get the financing in place, we're going to make an unconditional, unlimited guarantee that the project will get built, and my personal house, all my money, all my nonprofit money, all of this stuff is going to pay for anything that goes wrong. We then say, oh man, I really wish I had a really qualified guy in my corner fighting for the budget and those types of things. So we'd like to have a construction manager. We typically request proposals for that. We'd be happy to see local folks because it's cheaper to get construction management local than somebody driving from San Francisco here to do it. So we'll definitely get proposals from that. We absolutely want to have a construction manager. We think it's appropriate in this instance. The cost could be less than that, especially if we get somebody more local than regional. Hopefully that answers your question.
Great. And I'm team construction manager too. I find that they're incredibly valuable on anything bigger than a shed. But I think that we might have some local folks who are eminently qualified and would come in at a very either low or maybe free price even. I don't want to volunteer my neighbor, but he knows who he is. So there, I'm just, on items like that. Because, and the problem, $100,000, not a big line item in this whole thing, but then when you're talking about financing it over time, it does have a larger impact. So I just wanted to, have you, and on any of your other projects, have you ever worked with, a faith-based organization to kind of provide that, or some volunteers who are very industry experienced?
I've never worked with a faith-based organization on that. I have worked with local folks. In San Diego, we built a 33-unit homeless project, and instead of using our LA-based construction managers, we hired a Oceanside-based construction manager. They did a fabulous job. It really just depends on their construction expertise, and really it's a risk mitigant, right? And so to the degree that ownership and the tax credit investor who's going to put the $12 million in believes that this construction manager is going to truly mitigate the risk, then yeah, it's always great to local source talent.
Great, thank you. And that's another item I should really commend you on, is that thank you for using a lot of local vendors on putting this together. That's we like to see that. So
Wonderful. Thank
you. Yeah. Is there, I think we should start talking. Do you want to start? Did you have anything? Oh, you had an opinion. Let's start with you.
Yeah, so I mean, the more and more I listen, the more I find myself wanting, I need to put this in context. First of all, the $1.6 million is a loan. Second of all, it's contingent on us actually selling the property. But what I'd also like to see, if we move forward with being able to give them the tools they need, which a site control agreement, Kevin, let's, I mean, I'm sure you're very proficient in getting those going. But I'd like to see us have more outs on the financing side. For example, and I mean this with the utmost respect, I would say it to anybody, but I'm giving you a backstop for then you to commit whatever effort you see fit to get these vouchers. And I'm not saying for 1 second that you wouldn't give it 110%, but I want to see in writing that you have to. Do you know what I mean? And so I'd like to see just kind of more outs for us as a city to make sure that all the due diligence is done to bring our liability down from a maximum of 1.6 million down. I'd also like to see an out if the market just bursts and we don't get what we might think we will for that Times Square property. And if that inevitably delays us past the 12 months, that puts you in a tight spot. If all of a sudden the value doesn't come back what we had hoped for Times Square, and we choose as a city to hold off on selling it, that leaves you kind of high and dry. So I would just like to see the tools to allow them to move forward seeking their funding sources, but I'd really like a lot of consideration for outs on behalf of the city. $1.6 million for a town of 9,300 people where we really don't have a lot of major redevelopment coming in right at this second. There's not a big return's the wrong word. There's not a big opportunity for us to recoup the costs, essentially, that we could commit to several different ideas for moving the needle on homelessness. And so I want them to have the tools they need to move forward. I want the agreement to come back to us so that we can see what kind of outs we have as a city to make sure we don't overcommit funds we may or may not have the ability to raise. Yeah.
Yes, I really appreciate your commitment and your thorough explanation of everything, William. But we have to remember that it's not just building something. We have a 3-tier project here. We have a building, and we have a property management, and we also have a service provider in this project. To this day, I have not seen proposals of what the service provider is going to do, the property manager, management either. I would like to see how that plays into the financial figures of this project. Also, knowing that our economy is so unpredictable at this moment, what happens if there is a problem and there has to be refinancing? What happens to the money that we have lent, and what if you need more money? Are you going to come back to the city for another loan? We really don't have the 1.6 million at this moment. It's really extrapolating, and it's really working with money that is not available. I would find it for me to be responsible to vote on foreseeable money that we don't have any solid ground on at this point. So I would request not only that there's a commitment to seeking additional funding and to contemplate other programs for finance, but also to see and to evaluate, or perhaps to have access to see what is your plan with AWI, what is that, always with integrity, the service provider plan, and the property management plan and cost. Also, I would like to see a timeline on when this loan is going to be paid, because we are a very small city with very limited funding. and we cannot extend 1.6 million to 90 years. Also, I wouldn't like to put all of our available affordable housing money into one basket. What if we have another project coming up and then we have absolutely no money to contribute to another affordable housing project? I also need to, I really would like for us to stop saying homelessness and homeless, because this is not going to be for homeless. This is an affordable housing project that, yes, it will accommodate some people who have been homeless. And I also have issue with the fact that at the very beginning of this proposal, Colleen had said, and many people in the community had written, no housing first, no coordinated entry. I would like to see a commitment from both of you to say that, yes, you would comply with requirements for coordinated entry if that means a lower cost to the city in terms of monies spent.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, I'm okay with providing you with the backstop. A couple of conditions that we're going to write into it. You already mentioned that you were going to do whatever you had to do to get those vouchers. If it's participate with coordinated entries or, you know, housing first, you're going to do it. And so that's a must. I also like the idea that you're going to come down on that $450,000 to negotiate that with staff. And you're going to apply to multiple sources for funding. And the whole deal is hinged upon us selling that parcel. So with all those backstops for us, I'm more than happy to support a backstop for you at this point in time. So, okay.
That covered mine. Thank you.
See, I have to say that I have to confer, I'm probably in most agreement with Councilmember Turner and Councilmember Wilter. I still have a couple of reservations, and I'm inclined to move forward. I'm inclined to not put any brakes on this and leave it in the hands of Assistant City Manager Thompson to negotiate on our behalf. I'm still a little concerned at the cost per unit for us, but I think that there are some variables where the land price was concerned and with the limitations of the parcel that make it understandable. I have actually a question for maybe the city manager and assistant city manager. In your mind, are there any other parcels in town that maybe would be more suited, where we could get more density, more bang for our buck, that are that would be appropriate? I guess my question is, are we getting the best deal that we can with what's available for our affordable housing dollars?
That's a great question, Mayor, and I think what's at hand here is a piece of property that is owned by the city. Obviously, we also have the Times Square property, and we considered that. And the council has considered affordable housing there, and was determination made that there were for higher and better uses that would be supported in that particular location. So as of right now, I think given the location, given the city's ownership, it represents an ideal site for affordable housing. I think one of the issues that is challenging is the density requirements for the property that are driven by the zoning ordinance, and that's something that
and the creek, yeah,
we hear a lot.
Yeah.
Is that in order to really make projects feasible, is the city ought to look at increasing its density requirements, or increasing its allowable density to support more dense projects as a way to reduce that per unit costs. So that's something that's within your purview and authority to.
And we've been talking about it for a while, so maybe
Right.
it's time that we actually do it.
Right.
Because, and that's the other one, you bring me to one of the other issues I have with the project is that if you're going, five stories is completely different construction style and different cost per square feet. 3 feet and 2 feet is, it's my understanding that it's not that different. So I think that we would probably be getting a lot more bang for our buck if we were able to go to 3 stories, but we're limited by our own zoning and parking requirements, and we have to change that. Because this project and market rate projects and other affordable housing projects are not going to pencil out if we don't address this. So we need to get our own house in order where these requirements are concerned, especially in residential and in transit-oriented development. So.
Right. One thought for the council in terms of considering the request tonight is to kind of break it up a little bit. I know it's a lot to absorb and take in and try to opine on all the different requests. I think the initial item to kind of take up is whether council supports, extending site control to Kingdom Development. So you could say, yes, no, yes, subject to the following. So that might be one way to kind of address this issue tonight. And then there's also the request for pre-development funding, which is your inclusionary housing fund. To kind of take that up and give staff direction on where you stand relative to that. Early on when we were discussing the unspent bond proceeds, I think council, gave us direction to proceed with utilizing those funds towards this project, but indicate and share with staff if you remain committed to using those unspent bond proceeds towards the project. And then maybe the last one would be that the backstop issue, and I guess that might be a question for William and Colleen is, what's the timing for that backstop? My sense is, interpreting council, is that there's a lot of discomfort with committing something we don't have. And I certainly echo that concern, because by no means do I think that we're guaranteed to receive that funding. I mean, we're diligently working with our partners to sell that parcel, but that's subject to a lot of uncertainty. And even writing a letter saying we're going to commit something that we don't have would have to have a lot of legal caveats in it. I think that we'd have to, I'm not sure, if that's something we really want to entertain, recognizing that the developer kind of seeks that to help, receive other funding commitments for the project. But, I think if you're to give us direction on those first 3 items, we could certainly work diligently, continue our relationship with the developer and our, in Wallace House on moving this project forward, and really look. Obviously, as time goes on, we may have a better understanding of where we stand with relative to Times Square, and be in a position to, make a more definitive decision about how those funds might be allocated once, we are able to complete that project with Alexander Valley Wellness Center. So just some thoughts for council.
Would it be helpful to go through each council member and ask for regarding site control, the pre-development funding, and the position on the unspent bond funding? Is that, Mr. Sanchez?
If I may, I think that is helpful. I have been taking notes. I think the idea of the backstop, and I think some of what the city manager stated, and I think all of you have said, it's not just a $1.6 million loan, here you go. I think that it's very clear, and I think that the applicant also mentioned it would be contingent on several things, mainly contingent on you actually selling the property. There would be no requirements to sell either. So if, we would be negotiating that, you would see every agreement we would enter into. But as far as it's not just secured, here you go, 1.6, it's on the city side, you have to sell the property. You have to, and it also, it's the up to, so if you sell it for less, market crashes, whatever it is,
you shouldn't be committed to the 1.6 because it's money that you're going to get. We would be talking about on the other side, what do they have to do as well? I think that I've heard loud and clear also from the applicant, you're not looking at 1.6 backstop and just leave it at that, but no, you have to show us that you applied for this, whatever it is. We have to work on the program of what is going to be applied for, because if it's also, oh, I just didn't want to agree to some of those requirements, that's not good enough. I think what you heard from the applicant is whatever the requirements are for those programs, we're gonna commit to. That's kind of what I'm hearing as far as direction. All of this would be several agreements. It wouldn't be just one. Most likely, it's almost never just one. But I think that the first thing that they need to do in order to apply for grants is that site control. We get site control through different types of agreements. Again, those you can get out, right? It's just a site control for folks to actually be able to go seek funding. And if that funding happens, great, then we're moving on to all the other agreements. So it'll be several. I think that the residual receipts loan, things like that, all of those things will get worked out. Tonight, as the city manager mentioned, and I think you also mentioned, Mayor, would be helpful is the commitment of I think that the 1.9, just to make it clear that commitment was there. The going through the second topic was the $450,000 loan, which you heard it's not $450 anymore. It would be less because we don't have that in our fund balance, and I think that the recommendation was to provide at least direction or provide some leeway for negotiation for staff using what that fund balance is, if that's something the council wants to do. And then third would again be the backstop, which we just talked a lot about right now. I don't know, David, if I missed any. I think that if we get that direction, I think we'd be in good shape to move forward to work with the applicant.
Didn't I, may I?
Yeah, please.
Didn't I understand from William? In order to move forward, the tools you need tonight are site control, backstop. 1.9 can come back. You can continue negotiations with Kevin over the 450, maybe reduced to 395. But what you need to walk out of here today to be able to move forward are two things: site control, backstop. Is that correct?
Let me answer in a more robust way.
All right.
In our attempt to get vouchers from the county, we need site control, and we are more competitive at the county if the 1.9 million or the backstop, if there's some monies that come with it.
Or, forgive me for interrupting, but I want to
Yeah,
stop you right
1.9
there.
or the backstop, right?
Okay.
So in the county score sheet from last year's NOFA application, we met like 5 of the 6 priorities, and we were like, oh yeah, we're golden. They kicked us out because we didn't have site control.
Okay.
But one of the priorities we didn't have was a funding commitment from the city.
Okay.
Right. So to optimize our chances at the county, we would really love for you to provide us site control and some loan commitment.
Okay.
Right. Anything over $1 million would probably have the county say, oh, look, they've got local money, extra points for you. For the March application to the state, that's where we need the backstop for sure.
Okay.
Unless we've magically got vouchers before March. That would be wonderful too. So that's when we need the backstop, particularly for the March application. And if there was no backstop for the March, we would then hope to have a backstop or vouchers prior to the July 1 application.
All right, so you want to go?
Thank you.
Should we go round robin? Will that work for you? I think we've gotten that clarified. And then,
I think that works, Mayor. And again, I would take the direction of, yes, we would still come back to you with agreements and actual things. It would be how do you kind of feel you're going to get those agreements. I think that clarification was very helpful. But your team would be negotiating, making sure, depending on what the council said, giving them enough what they need in order to keep moving forward, since it does benefit everybody if they're able to apply.
so I'm going to go ahead and just go down the line and ask them 1 through 3, if that took 10 minutes. Okay. Can I start to my right? Are you?
Yes.
Can you go through 1, 2, and 3? The first one being site control.
Well, I think the site control could be given in January, since they're not going to apply for the 4%.
I think it's a yes or no. I think so. On site control, we're asking for a yes or no, correct? Okay. That's all we're asking.
Well, but I think we should clarify this.
You may, but all
Yeah.
I'm going to ask for is a
Okay,
yes or no.
site control, yes, in 2020.
Okay, so
The 1.9, okay, which is what we already committed.
number 3, okay, backstop, okay.
I don't have it written down. Then,
Trying to make it easy for you, Kevin.
no to the 1.6, and yes to some money of the 450. Some, not all, because we need to have salary money and we need to have some cushion in the city.
So it sounds like for the pre-development funding, that you're looking for Kevin to negotiate that?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And then, and you've answered 3, which is the backstop, okay.
No.
Okay, great. And Mr. Vice Mayor, did you write those down? I can give them to you. Yeah.
Thank you. Site control, yes. 1.9, yes. 1.6, yes. And the 450 negotiated after you figure out the budget for salaries and the cushion.
Do you need me to repeat that?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Site control, yes. 1.9 million, I'd like to see us hold off. The 450,000, I want to see you do the negotiation how you see fit. The 1.6, I want them to have the tools they need to move forward. So yes on the 1.6, with Myers-Nave ensuring that there is outs for the city.
I'm just doing one.
Just clarification, support the backstop first more than the 1.9 for unspent
Yeah, because I mean,
The 1.9
at the
was agreed upon on the first time.
Excuse me, yeah, I think we're confused.
I think so.
Yeah, can you restate our options, please?
Sure. The 1.9 is the amount that we have in the budget for unspent housing bond proceeds.
Yeah.
And that was the initial amount that we were going to put in the request for
Yes.
proposals.
Oh, I understand now. I'm sorry. Yeah, so I'm not trying to upset that.
Yeah.
Move forward with the
Okay.
1.9. Yeah, no, I totally get that. And then the backstop, I'm okay with. It needs to be, yeah, I want some contingency plans.
So as far as tonight is concerned, I am in favor of the site control. I'm looking to Assistant City Manager Thompson to negotiate on our behalf regarding the pre-development monies, and I can hold off on the backstop for now, can't I? I can do, yeah, I'm going to hold off on that for now. I'd like to see this develop a little bit more, and then I would feel more comfortable seeing where we're at a later date. So you have adequate direction? Yeah, and actually, so you have directions on this. We're not actually going to be voting on this, correct?
We were, the item tonight, we weren't requesting that the council formalize a motion on this. I think
Right.
through the dialogue, you've given us
I
clear
don't think
direction.
we're ready yet. I think you have pretty clear direction. Is there any, yeah?
Yes, as far as the 1.6.
Yeah.
We heard it's a two as far as the no's or the hold-offs versus the yes and the yes. My recommendation would be everything we have now with the 1.9, with the site control, et cetera, for us to go back, continue to work with the applicant, knowing and keep exploring that stopgap and maybe provide a little more guidance for the council on what that looks like as we keep moving forward. But at least we know that the site control, the 1.9, which is the bond proceeds, and then we have the pre-development money with the direction for the team to negotiate what that amount would be. The only thing that we didn't hear consensus at this point was for the backstop, the 1.6. We heard 2 yeses and a hold off and then a no. But my recommendation again would be us continue to work with the applicant to come and show you potentially what that looks like. We could definitely do that.
And is there room on the agenda in early January and is there time for that? Or when do you think this would come back?
I was thinking the second meeting in January, so we
Okay.
can give a chance for Myers-Nave to work through some of these things.
Great. That sounds good. Yeah, that gives you the time frame that you need, so.
And then we would ultimately approve the agreement you came up with.
That's correct.
Agreements.
It would be, there would be several
Yeah.
agreements, but we would phase them. We would be whatever the applicant needs in order to keep moving forward.
Great.
And again, just to be clear, I didn't hear a no from the mayor regarding the 1.6. I just heard holding off, seeing what that looks like, and we could work with the applicant on that.
Yeah, because if holding off and seeing what it looks like means a potential agreement for approval on that regard on the second week of January, then that doesn't upset me. You know, I'm okay with that.
We couldn't do it tonight.
Yeah.
I would just ask if there's, I think on the backstop concept, if we discuss and actually negotiate out what a workable agreement would be, and then you got to see that, and then you got your council's advice on how good or bad this protects your interests, I almost think it's worthwhile to just draft it. Okay, that's what you're proposing. So that way, if by September sometime you had plenty of time to chew on it, and you said, I guess, or no, you know, it would still be before March.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think we'll have more information to make the decision with. I'm personally more comfortable with that. So.
That's fine.
Okay. Great.
And that's exactly how I took that direction. It's not the commitment to do it, it's the, let me look at it, let me see what that agreement will look like.
Exactly. Great. All right. Does anyone else have any other comments or questions at this time? Colleen?
I have a question to clarify. So does this mean we proceed with the DDA? Are we going to negotiate? We're going to draft it? That's what we're doing, is we're drafting the development? Okay, all right.
Thanks for asking. Great. All right. Is there anything else from, sounds like you have clear direction. Great. Well, we'll move on to the next item. Could someone please retrieve Councilmember Brigham? Or and actually we're going to take a short 5-minute break. Thanks everybody.
You don't get to be here.
Right.
But if you
Oh, you have been. Oh, yeah. He's on there now, too. Yeah. Oh, good.
Okay, we're going to get restarted here. Go to item 18, discussion and direction on draft City Council 2020 Subcommittee, Joint Committee, and Regional Boards Committee appointments. Mr. City Manager.
Mayor, Council, this is part of your annual process to discuss the subcommittee, joint committee, and regional board appointments. What's included in your packet is preference indication worksheets that you can utilize to help indicate which regional boards, which subcommittees, and joint committees you would like to serve on. Included in the agenda report is some guidelines that I would utilize to make recommendations for subcommittee appointments and ultimately bring those back for your consideration. To outline those guidelines, staff tries to provide for some parity in committee roles by ensuring that council members are assigned to at least one of their first choices. And sometimes that's challenging if all of you or a majority of you indicate your first preference is one particular subcommittee. In that regard, we usually try to provide some continuity between the subcommittees by year by choosing at least one existing member to continue, and then also to try to divvy up the workload, because there's quite a bit of workload with our 6 subcommittees, and certainly also all the regional boards that this council participates in. One kind of new recommendation, or one new appointment that is included on the list this year that wasn't included on the past year, includes a new invitation by the Cloverdale Senior Center for participation by the city to sit on their board. That role can be filled by a city council member or city council members, if you want to appoint primary and alternate, or some combination of city staff. I think the board is reaching out to the council, particularly giving the council support financially for the senior center, to have a greater role in that organization. So that's a new appointment. Really, at this point, the intent was to provide the council with information about the current subcommittee appointments, as well as the schedule and time frame for those meetings. Ultimately, when council makes those appointments, we also set the meeting times and dates by resolution. And so whenever we cancel a meeting or change a meeting time, we have to schedule special meetings. So it's also an opportunity for council to discuss if there's any proposed changes in subcommittee meeting times or subcommittee meeting dates. So, council's welcome to discuss it tonight. Otherwise, really just wanted to kind of tee it up for council so that we can get those your recommendations back, and I can prioritize them and bring them back for the next meeting for you to formally approve.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I had mentioned at a previous meeting about even just re-looking at what subcommittees we hold and whether certain ones could be combined or new ones added. And I see the Cloverdale Senior Center in here. Would the council be willing to entertain recommendations for different subcommittees coming up at the next meeting, or even the proposal of combining different ones? I mean, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I have a few thoughts, you know what I mean, that I wouldn't mind putting together and proposing to the council for subcommittee.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
Well, things like the library advisory board, that could be something that moves into, say, something like the admin, police, and finance, and it could be a recurring item, because I'm led to believe that some of these don't get really the opportunity to meet very often. They they tend to be TBD, like the Joint City and Fire District. Should we, instead of looking at a specific subcommittee for that, roll it into one that exists and have them be a recurring agenda item? And they don't necessarily have to go by the same name, you know, exactly.
The library is quite
That was just one
current.
thing off the top of my head, I
that is an ongoing,
Yeah.
and it works closely with the county
But
board.
it's you going to their meeting.
Yeah.
It's not-
Oh, okay, cool, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the only problem. I hear you. I appreciate, yeah. I appreciate it.
So anyway, I might have ideas that I'll propose to us as a whole, and if we like them, we vote them. If we don't, we carry on down the road, so.
We don't control them. The library.
The library, I agree. I might go down the rabbit hole of others. You know, I just kind of want to take a look at this.
Yeah. Airport? Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Airport's a possibility.
There we go.
You could
Airport
roll
and
it-
fire.
Public Works.
Public Works.
That would be logical.
That's,
Yeah.
So I guess let me rephrase where I would really like to encourage this type of thinking amongst all of us. Where could we consolidate? Where could we look at?
Well, I think one of the things we have to take into consideration is is this going to put a burden on staff?
Sure,
To
absolutely.
do a bigger agenda and try and balance all the attendees from the airport, only when there's a hot issue, I understand that, and all the attendees from the other committees. So I think there's a balance there.
Sure.
But can I just continue on one thing?
Sure.
Now that I have my own mic. You know, the senior center did request a council member on their board, and I have to tell you, I'm not sure how I feel about that. You know, I just, you know, the council member can't make a commitment on behalf of the city on any particular topic. So I just think it would put the council member in an awkward position to feel that they have to be an advocate for something that the senior center, performing arts center, well, Mary Ann, you could relate to that, the history center. I mean, I just think it puts the council member in an awkward position. That's my thought on it.
Well, and a question is this, well, no, that was my first question. This is working. Thanks, Dennis. Second question is, I mean, don't we already have staff going to the senior center meetings
As a health action.
for health action?
The staff does attend the health
The health
action
action, but
committee.
not the senior center board.
And in that regard, we're not formally, staff isn't formally appointed. We kind of attend just to be active participants in support of
It's
the
just-
discussion.
It's health action being
Well,
completely separate. I think you bring up an interesting point. Is it appropriate? Yeah.
Gus brings a good point, because I felt a little bit put on the spot at the library advisory board, because they wanted this and they wanted that, and I said, okay, you need to be able to attend some of the subcommittee meetings to address this.
And if I
Because
may-
it's not for me to commit as a city council
Because-
member
So
for
as
anything.
the library liaison, you felt that you were put in a position on issues that would have to go to the subcommittee
Yeah,
anyway.
so
Okay.
what I did is, I feel that what they need is instruction on how to proceed.
But shouldn't the liaison be providing that?
Yeah, that's where I think the value added is, because what comes to mind is the Chamber of Commerce. When we act as a liaison with the Chamber of Commerce, a very specific item that came up was the discussion of a experienced Cloverdale mural to go on the side of our salon. And it was Marta and I that reminded them through the process, this needs to hit the Planning Commission and get that approval to go through. And so I don't know if being on the senior center board is value added, but there would be value added to them having a liaison of some sort, is my opinion.
Well, being that I sit on the board of the Performing Arts Center and also on council, I do not represent the Performing Arts Center like when Al or whatever, Al is the new liaison to the city, and he's a very good one. But I do not get involved in that conversation because that would be, to me, a conflict. And so I'm just really careful about how far I take that. But if anybody has to go talk to the city about an issue, money especially, I just stand back and say, this is this committee, this is not me. But you're right, it is awkward at times, but you have to just speak up and say, this is not my position. I cannot do this.
But I think it's good to be present as a liaison.
Yeah.
More
And
so
we
than
do that
a
all
board
the time
member.
at our JPAs. I mean,
Yeah.
when we go, we don't vote or make big policy without the consultation of the rest of the council.
But I think it's very important that they get educated in some of the processes.
Well, go get
Because
'em.
it's not just, go talk to David.
No, you give your opinion, you
Yeah.
give your opinion, but when the actual negotiations start,
Yes.
you back away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's like-
not your place.
Exactly.
So are we almost clarifying verbiage here that we would prefer this said Cloverdale Senior Center liaison?
Liaison, I think so. What do you say,
fine with
David?
That's council's discretion, how you'd like to, fill the opportunity that has been presented by the senior center board. I think they're interested in just building a relationship with the city. And
Especially since we're their landlords. I'm more comfortable with it being I'm fine with it being a liaison. I'm not comfortable being a board member. Yeah. Is that reasonable?
Sounds
Okay.
good to me.
All right. But I think good suggestions on the subcommittee, Jason. I think that, why don't we come back at the other Jason? I know, it's probably driving you guys crazy. You can't sit next to each other.
We both.
I know.
Just keep looking.
Yeah, so maybe at the next meeting, we'll come back with ideas of, how to consolidate, but I
Yeah.
think maybe that.
And I think maybe just as a point of clarification, I don't want to derail David's process. Put your name down where you want to be, right? But if you have suggestions for where we could consolidate or remove, at least have it. And I plan to do so. So
yeah, any notes that council wants to share on the indication sheets, we'll try to take that into account, articulate that in the agenda report that would come forward, so that council would have that as part of their deliberation, so to speak, on their appointments.
Yeah, and I'm very sensitive to Vice Mayor Walters pointing out again that we have to be careful.
Yeah, minimal
If we
staff
do-
impact.
If we do a consolidation, do we pack out a meeting too badly? But airport, it meets not very frequently, and generally, it's fairly light agendas. Having served on Public Works before, those two, they might work and play well together. So.
Yeah, I mean, Public Works addresses all the other cities' facilities, and
Yeah.
you should consider this airport another
Exactly.
facility.
And there are issues that are particular too, but what happens, just like at every council meeting or every subcommittee meeting, as soon as that person's subject matter is over, they get up and leave. And then they make room for the next group, so, so that's a possibility, so maybe just, do some more thinking about that before we come back to this item. Go ahead.
Yeah, I also think that the local committees would be best. I know that Gus and Mary Ann don't like to go out of town, so it would be best if we could have those of us who want to stay in town participate of some of the boards or committees that are locally.
Well, I can understand that. I work a full-time job, so anything that meets, during regular business hours, it's not that I don't want to be there. It's very hard for me to attend.
Understand.
And so I will make note of that when my name is absent from a lot of those regional-based boards, but I'll try and make sure I'm, heavily represented here locally. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, because I tell you, it is very important we remind people that Cloverdale is in Sonoma County.
No, you're right, but him having a job, and for years,
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah, I
had a
understand.
full-time job also,
Yeah.
so I could not do it.
And I don't mind going out of town.
Oh, okay.
Any other discussion on item 18?
Nope.
Just a quick note on the draft subcommittee, joint committee meeting schedule. The staff did, there's kind of they were set on regular dates, for example, the third Wednesday of the month or something, where they're, in doing that analysis, where there were conflicts with holidays or other events, we attempted to kind of reschedule those, because often that happens anyways. So we tried to kind of build that into this calendar so that it was kind of, we didn't have to cancel meetings and schedule special meetings. But council may want to look at the overall meeting dates for all the subcommittees and decide if that schedule really suits, you know, the work plan that you want to undertake for the next year.
Great.
But if you can get that back to me by no later than, I think it was December 28th, that would help me to prepare the agenda report with recommendations to bring forward for the January 8th council meeting.
All right. You have December 23rd on the memo.
Okay, December 23rd.
But it's the 28th. It is the 28th.
23rd is preferable, but if the 28th, I would have time to.
Give him a Christmas present.
You got it.
Yeah,
All right.
and well, I'll note it, but January 24th is a very bad day depending on who's the mayor, because it's a Redwood division.
The 24th, January?
Yeah, January 24th.
Oh, it's also League of Cities, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. They're going to have to learn to get along without us. So we move on to next item. We're good? Okay, great. Item 19, selection of mayor and vice mayor.
No real report, Mayor. This is the typical time of year that the council selects the mayor and the vice mayor for the next coming year. And we've scheduled that to occur, obviously, the first meeting in December. And our recommendation is that the council deliberate on who the mayor would be, and once they appoint the mayor, make a vote on the vice mayor.
All right. Is there an opinion about the mayor? Would anyone like to put anything forward?
Yeah, I'll nominate Gus. He's vice mayor now, moves up to mayor.
I'll accept that nomination if there's a second.
I'm fine with that. I'll second it.
Can I also make a nomination?
There's a motion on the floor.
There's a motion on the floor.
Okay.
I'm looking at you.
Councilmember Turner?
Oh, and actually, I'm sorry, and it is getting late. I'm going to open this up to the public. Would anyone like to come forward and comment on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back.
Sorry about that. Councilmember Turner?
Yes.
Councilmember Brigham?
Yes.
Councilmember Cruz?
I'm not sure.
You have to vote. Or, yeah.
No.
Oh, abstain.
Okay, Vice Mayor Roger?
Yes.
And Mayor Brady?
Yes.
Madam Mayor, may I speak?
What? I'm not the mayor anymore.
Oh, already?
No, you are the mayor. until
Oh,
the
I'm the
next
mayor
meeting.
until the next meeting. Thank you. Point of order, point of order.
Well, I was just going to nominate you for a second term, even though it's not the usual practice.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
But in Windsor, it also took place as such, that the mayor is going on second term.
Nice.
Breaking the,
It happens. I've seen it happen, yeah.
yeah.
So are we going on to vice mayor?
We are moving on to vice mayor.
I would like to nominate Jason Turner for vice mayor.
Wow. I will accept that.
Well, I'll second that.
And I'm going to open it up to the floor, or to the public. Would anyone like to come forward and make a comment? Okay, great. Great.
Lariva Miles, Cloverdale. I would just like to say that I have known Jason Turner for a really long time, and I am really proud of the fact that he has put so much time and energy into this city. I think he was on other boards before he became a city council person.
You spoke on my behalf then too, Lariva.
Yes,
He was on the planning
and
commission,
so
yeah.
I
Where
would
you can
definitely
garner a lot of good
support.
experience.
I would definitely support him being the vice mayor because I think he's got what it takes to do whatever he needs to do to get the job done.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to come forward? Okay, seeing none.
Councilmember Cruz?
Nay.
Vice Mayor
Walter? Yes.
Mayor Bagby?
Aye.
Councilmember Brigham?
Aye.
And Councilmember Turner.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to any subcommittee items. None. All right.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a suggestion on a subcommittee item, if I could.
Certainly.
I'd like to have one of the subcommittees start talking about the restrooms on the plaza.
Yay.
The Portland Loos, as Mark tells me they're called. We've kind of kicked that around a little bit, but I'd like to officially put it on a subcommittee.
And may I?
Certainly.
For the next Planning and Community Development Subcommittee, whoever happens to be that one, I'd like to see us move forward with making the specialized group to address climate change technologies and building and that sort.
Great. Any other direction? All right, seeing none, subcommittee reports. Airport, our next meeting is, as long as I'm on it, is February 4th. Finance Administration, our next meeting will be January 23rd.
The Planning and Community Development's next meeting will be February 18th, though I do believe we have one this coming Tuesday. So the 17th of December,
Yep.
4 p.m., City Hall.
Mm-hmm.
The Public Works next meeting will be January the 28th at 4 p.m. if it stays, so that'll be a tentative.
I have a question about that. So when would the new appointments start for the new groups,
For the new
Yeah.
subcommittee. So if we bring forward the subcommittee appointments for the council's consideration at January 8th, then we would bring it back to adopt by resolution at the following meeting, which would be
The end of
January
January.
22nd.
It's almost always in January.
Yeah.
So all the January ones will continue.
Right. Under the municipal code, you continue to serve as a subcommittee until a new member is appointed.
Okay.
And I did want to note on the schedule for finance, admin, and police, we did, because the meeting fell on December 26th. I think at the previous meeting in November, we noted that and canceled it or recommended rescheduling it to the third week in December, which I think was December 19th. So to the comment earlier from the Vice Mayor, we were going to place the Portland Lou discussion on the Finance, Admin, and Police Subcommittee, in part to look at the cost and how the project may be financed by the city.
Great, thank you. All right, any other input on the subcommittees?
No, because the next one will be in February.
There you go, exactly. So we'll move on to council reports. Who would like to lead us off?
Yeah, I just have, I met with the Alexander Valley Resort developers in early November. Madam Mayor was in attendance with me. I think that's it. I've been absolutely trying to raise a newborn.
Yeah. Yes, you have.
Councilmember Brigham, okay.
My report is written. It's too long to tell.
Madam Mayor, I don't have a report. I just want to say a congratulations to our two newest city council members. It's been a year. And,
Thank you.
Exactly to the date.
yeah, and
Is
I
it
bet
really?
you it
What a
feels
trip.
like 5 years, but you've both done a good job. Mata, I've told you before, I'll tell you again, you've really outreached to the Hispanic population, and you're doing a good job there. And Jason, you just seem to be involved with a little bit of everything. So thank you both.
You're procreating very
Beyond
well.
I appreciate the kind words.
I should clarify, beyond the Hispanic population.
Yes.
County and state.
Yep.
Oh, and actually, congratulations on receiving the fellowship. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I was selected among several Latino leaders in the state to represent Northern Sonoma County in Water for Elected Latino Leaders. That is going to entail a week and a month to learn about water policy in the state of California, and I will be traveling throughout the state to learn about problems that other communities have encountered, how they have resolved the situations, or how they're contemplating to resolve the problems that they have. And I look forward to having the next meeting in northern Sonoma County.
Congratulations.
In year 2021.
Very good, thank you.
Congratulations.
Do you have anything? Great. Well, my report is actually very short, and I will also be submitting it in writing because I was sick most of November, including our council meeting in November. But I did, before I went down, I believe I went to the meeting with you, with Alexander Valley Resort, and also last week was able to attend the League Leaders meeting, which thankfully was in Napa. At Meritage Resort, which I had zero time to enjoy. It was yet another conference room. And I was persona non grata because I was still coughing. But we did manage to set our legislative priorities for the League of Cities for 2020. And at the executive board meeting on Friday, for the first time ever, in a 22-17 vote, the League of Cities board voted to include the words climate change in their legislative priorities. And for the rest of us who live in the beautiful bubble that is Sonoma County, that does not sound like a big deal. But for the League of Cities, that was tectonic. And I chalk it up to showing up, being involved, and standing up for what you believe in. And that's what I've tried to do all year, and I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to serve as mayor and get to do that and to stand up for what's right, to speak truth to power, and make change, even if it's incremental. So I want to thank you for trusting me to be your mayor, and it's been an honor to serve you. I also want to take an opportunity now to thank staff. We have an outstanding professional staff in this city, and I'm never going to stop saying it. We are so lucky to have the men and women who serve in City Hall, and people don't know unless you're honored enough to get this job, honored enough to serve with them on subcommittee, see the quality of their work and their knowledge and professionalism of the industry. And it is an industry. Government is an industry. They're educated, they're lifelong learners, and they bring that passion for public service to everything they do, and they make us look great. So I just want to say thank you.
Hear, hear.
And with that, we'll go to our legislative report. Hopefully somebody has some good news for us. Do you have anything? There's stuff cooking, I know that.
Well, a couple of things, Mayor, if I can, really just under a city manager report. On Thursday last week, we held a debrief meeting on the Kincaid fire, gas shutoff, and power shutoff, or de-energization, as we called it. And we had about 50 folks in attendance at that meeting. The chief and I had a conference call this morning with the meeting facilitators who were gracious enough to participate in the meeting. And we are going to be working on releasing kind of a report out on that debrief with a kind of a work plan that we'll bring back to council for the council's consideration on how we can take some of the recommendations that were presented during that debrief meeting and begin, try to actively implement what was some of the recommendations. Because I think I had a conversation with Councilmember Brigham about kind of next steps, and so we're going to try to do that very quickly and get back to all the folks that took the time out of their day to attend that meeting and provide their input, which some of it was pretty critical and but valuable nonetheless. And we want to respond to that and outline how we can address some of the issues to make our emergency preparedness efforts more resilient and hopefully make this community more resilient and empower the organizations in the community.
Before you go on,
Yeah.
David, would you be so kind as to send a summary of what took place? I had an accident that morning and I couldn't attend, so I spent the morning at the hospital. So I would really appreciate if you could send that before the next meeting, please.
Okay, yeah,
Thank you.
and there's going to be we expect a report that will be forthcoming next week, and as soon as I receive it, obviously I want to vet it and make sure it's reflective of the conversation that was held, but I'll first and foremost want to get that to council so you can take a look at it, because I think there was a lot of valuable information, I think, that was presented at the meeting.
And I think it's not anything we have to be too afraid of, because in looking at the whole thing, I think a lot of the things we can do are fairly simple and fairly inexpensive. So it's something I think we can move on fairly rapidly.
I also wanted to share with council, if you haven't had the opportunity already, that our new website has launched.
Looks good.
I think it looks a lot better, but it's not done. It's a work in progress. Just yesterday, we added the social media links, and so you're gonna see that as have more robust connections to social media. And I think one of the key changes is that it's going to point to the city's business page. For a long time, the city's had a personal page, and the business page should have a more professional look to it. But we need to get more information posted so it becomes the go-to site for information rather than the personal page, because we've hit our limit in terms of friends on our personal page, and what most cities do have is the professional page. So we'll be continuing to develop that and migrate to that. And I know Chief is actively implementing Nixle 360. There's a link there, and so we'll be pushing that out to get more people signed up for Nixle, so we can have a more robust notification system for our police department. And then, last but not least, on our new website, there was information posted under the news section about the proposed ordinance, the model ordinance on the polystyrene ban. And so that got, I think, kind of front and center as a tool that can be used to, as council wanted us to do some outreach, and that got that information there. Just today, sent out a letter to all of the restaurants in Cloverdale about the proposed ordinance, and as well as sent that to the chamber director. I copied Councilmember Cruz and Councilmember Turner on that letter as the chamber liaisons, and Nina has agreed to send that out to the membership as well. So we'll be working to get the word out, and obviously I'm sure we had a speaker tonight that commented on that, and be able to bring back that feedback as part of the introduction of that ordinance. So that's all in the works, and it's all part of the tools that we're trying to develop. I know the chief has already dove in on the new website, and we'll be updating information again, trying to engage the community and use it really as a more effective tool. When I mentioned more to come, we don't have it operational yet, but there's going to be the ability to file a service request on the website. Very simple, very easy, whether it's fill a pothole, trim a tree. It might very quickly become overwhelming for staff if we get a ton of service requests, but it's going to be moving away from the paper-based program to online. And so I think that's something that council expressed during the budget process, to try to again try to facilitate the community's ability to get those service requests before staff. So that's something that you'll see happen on our website as well.
Is it going to have status of projects? Like, I remember that Shirley had requested some of that, and we had reviewed a variety of sites that showed, applications, projects, and the status of those projects.
Right, and so that's all things we're all looking at, and we'll be figuring out how best to get that information posted up. Whether it's through the news, so that when new projects are filed, it can be on the front page. So that's something that is more to come on that.
I think we morphed into city manager's report there.
Right.
But is there a city attorney report? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to council direction on future agenda items. We've gotten the portalets. Anything else?
I gave mine.
Okay. Gave it the
Well, I'm
office.
just expecting a meeting with Brian Albee.
With Brian Albee. Okay.
Discuss the route.
Actually, yeah, that's a good agenda item, and let's get moving on that before we do any other major improvements or any other changes. Well, and on that note, I'd like to thank everyone for coming and watching, and we will adjourn until our regular meeting, which is going to be Wednesday, January 8th, 2020. Thank you. We are adjourned.
Happy holidays. See ya.